I can't see anything.
Damn, we're off course.
No, I can't see it.
We're way off.
On June the 1st, 1999, as an American Airlines jet prepared to land amid fierce thunderstorms, passengers knew they were flying into trouble.
I don't know what made me aware, so doggone aware, that we were going to have a problem.
Oh, no!
Within minutes, their worst fears would be realized.
Other one!
Other one! Other one!
I'm yelling, get away from the plane. Run. Get away from the plane.
I don't know where we're at, but there's a road that goes around the airport. Well, we got a lot of people hurt.
This film tells the story of a tragic and avoidable disaster. The investigation would reveal a lethal combination of pilot error, the devastating effects of severe weather, and a dangerous race to keep the plane on schedule. It would also uncover disturbing evidence of an industry-wide failing, one that could kill again at any time. Despite reliable aircraft and extensive training, modern airlines and their crews face unprecedented pressures. Intense industry competition demands that the whole system, from the flight planners to the pilots, be efficient and on time. The stresses this can bring would play a vital role in the loss of Flight 1420. For a large operator like American Airlines, the pressures start with the complex task of scheduling their vast fleet. Dispatchers direct the planes around the world in a carefully choreographed dance. The strain of maintaining this efficiency affects the entire system.
Of course, competition has become very intense, a lot of pressure on the dispatchers, pilots, flight attendants, and basically the whole infrastructure to accomplish the mission and make a dollar.
Every effort is made to ensure that nothing disrupts these fragile schedules. But there is one variable that no airline can control: the weather. The southern states of America are especially prone to severe weather. Storms not only cause delays, but pose extreme dangers to commercial jets. Delays, scheduling problems, and fierce thunderstorms would all conspire to turn a routine flight into a terrifying race against time. On June the 1st, 1999, American Airlines Flight 1420 is running late.
The movement of the storms, everything is sliding to the southeast. So yes, we do have a stormy evening headed our way.
The delay of Flight 1420 put pressure on the pilots even before takeoff. The responsibility can fall on flight crews to keep a tight schedule on track.
Dispatch, please. Yeah, it's Michael Arago.
Crews have strict legal limits on their duty time. The first officer warned the dispatcher that they were in danger of running out of time.
Duty time limit at around 11:16.
The flight had to take off in the next hour or be cancelled. The pilots also became aware of another pressure caused by deteriorating weather near their destination.
Pilots had a weather briefing that they got before they departed Dallas-Fort Worth, which provided the forecasts, the weather alerts. The dispatcher and the captain preparing for the flight looked at the weather information and thought they could get to Little Rock before the thunderstorms impacted.
The 139 passengers just wanted to get home.
I was traveling with my son and my daughter. We were coming home from our vacation. It was my daughter's first flight. The plane was late and there were a lot of delays, of course. It was tiring, it was frustrating, it was late at night.
They soon began to sense that Flight 1420 was racing against the weather.
As they called for us to board the plane, and they wanted us there and just to get on really quickly. Just get on, sit down, put your seatbelt on, we're going.
They did mention that there was bad weather between us and Little Rock. They wanted to get ahead of the bad weather coming into Little Rock.
Finally, over 2 hours behind schedule, Flight 1420 leaves Dallas. Unknown to the crew, the storms are already massing around Little Rock. 40 minutes later, 1420 is 100 miles from its destination. At this point, the voice recorder transcript reveals a calm and steady cockpit routine.
American 1420, you gonna still want lower?
So far, it's okay.
So far, so good, ma'am. American 1420 will let you know.
The first officer on American 1420 was a new hire. He had just recently completed training, and he had been paired on one of his first trips with this management captain. So now you had a very experienced pilot sitting in the left seat with the company, paired with a relatively new hire.
Bushman and Origal are clearly relaxed as they plan their approach and landing.
25 for 24, set and armed. Think this stuff's gonna work out pretty well?
Yeah, we're almost down to max landing weight.
There's a moon out. Or a spaceship.
Oh, it's the mothership.
Center pump's coming off.
All right.
The pilots are keeping a close eye on the storms ahead. Onboard weather radar scans a cone-shaped area of sky in front of the plane. Potentially severe storms show up in red.
There's your big what diddly.
Yeah, we got to get over there real quick.
Don't like that. That's lightning.
Sure is.
The American Airlines dispatcher issued an update on the shape and formation of the thunderstorms.
Right now on radar, there's a large slot to Little Rock. Thunderstorms are on the left and right, and Little Rock is in the clear, sort of like a bowling alley approach. Thunderstorms are moving east-north-eastward towards Little Rock, and they may be a factor for our arrival. I suggest expediting our arrival.
Dispatcher gave this flight crew the weather information. It appeared to him that there was going to be a gap, or what he called the bowling alley, where you had two types of thunderstorms or two thunderstorms with an alley between it. And that the flight crew, if they had expedited their travel to Little Rock, could probably make it up that alley before the two storms closed together.
But as Flight 1420 descends, the plan to beat the storms is about to go seriously wrong. The pilots do not realize that the walls of the bowling alley are closing in. The route flown by American Airlines Flight 1420 is flanked by treacherous thunderstorms, a corridor the pilots call the bowling alley. With 80 miles to go, the path to Little Rock still appears to be clear.
This is the bowling alley right here.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, there are the city lights. Straight there.
You want to go down?
Not yet, but pretty soon. We're about 80 miles from the airport, and we started our descent toward it. Quite a light show on the side of the aircraft, and we're going to be passing that on our way to Little Rock. It's been a pleasure having you aboard our short flight, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for flying American Airlines.
The lightning seemed to be on both sides of the plane. It lit up the inside of the plane. Very quick, you know, just kaboom type lightning, which was a little scary.
There was quite a light show off to the left. Normally that doesn't get pointed out. If you go past the Grand Canyon, that gets pointed out, but not a lightning show.
As the plane descends, transcripts of the cockpit voice recordings show that the pilots are aware of rough weather ahead.
Descent checks complete.
We got to get there quick.
Yep. Sit them down early.
Hello?
I think it's going to get a little bumpy here again, if you don't mind.
Do we need to sit down?
Well, how far through are you?
We're almost done, but not quite.
Well, finish it up real quick.
Okay.
I thought it was more turbulent than normal. I remember especially watching the flight attendant, and I was looking at her with amazement. I was wondering how could she hold those trays and pour the drinks and not spill everything. From that point, it just got worse.
With flaps 40, 130,000 pounds, 200 feet.
As they prepare for landing, the pressure on the pilots will now steadily rack up.
Not required.
Manual brakes?
Manual's fine.
At first, as the crew pick their way around the storms, everything seems steady.
Yeah, actually, there's a city right there.
Yeah.
Breaking through this crowd. Good, doing good.
Even when the first indication comes that the storms are advancing, the pilots take it in their stride.
Whoa. Looks like it's moving this way, though.
Yeah. Just some lightning straight ahead.
I think we're gonna be okay, though. Right there.
Yep, right down the bowling alley.
As my friends would say, California cool.
Cool. Peachy.
Exactly. 1420 at 11.3 for 10,000.
But when the pilots contact the controller at Little Rock, he gives the first of a series of alarming weather alerts.
Roger. We've got a thunderstorm just northwest of the airport moving through the area now. Wind is 280 at 2.8, gusts 4.4, and I'll have new weather for you in just a moment, I'm sure.
Gale force winds are gusting to 50 miles per hour, enough to blow tiles off a rooftop. High winds pose a severe hazard for Flight 1420. Crosswinds could make it difficult to control the plane on landing. The pilots must quickly determine if they're within safe limits. They calculate the strength of the crosswind from its angle to their final approach.
All right, so that's 280 at 4.4.
Gusts at 44.
Right, near the limit.
Well, it's 40 degrees off. I mean, you're not out of the limit because of the angle, but that's pretty close.
The crosswind limit for landing is 30 knots on a dry runway, but Bushman and Origal now become confused about what happens if it rains.
Well, 30 knots is the crosswind limitation, but see, 30 knots,
that's
well,
dry.
Wet. Yeah, dry.
What's the wet?
20.
It's 25.
The discussion is never resolved, and the crosswinds will soon be gusting well over the limit.
Flight attendants, prepare for landing, please.
The pilot's attention now returns to the bad weather ahead.
He said the storm was to the northwest of the field?
You said northwest.
Yeah.
Lightning strike, you said storm.
But the task of tracking the storms is made more difficult by the lack of sophisticated radar at Little Rock.
American 1420, your equipment's a lot better than what I have. How's that final for 2-2 left looking?
What's that?
We can see the airport, but we can just barely make it out.
We should be able to make 2-2. That storm is moving closer like your radar says.
But it's a little farther off than you thought.
The controllers are going, well, your radar is better than mine, so forth. The controller in this accident had a monochromatic, or basically almost a black and white set of a radar, and could not determine the intensities of the storm.
Just 8 miles from the airport, the pilots now face another key decision: how to approach the runway through bad weather. Controllers routinely ask pilots if they want to land visually, instead of relying on the airport's Electronic Instrument Landing System, or ILS. But a visual approach means they must be able to see the runway, and this is proving difficult.
No, we can't really make it out right now. We're gonna have to stay with you as long as possible.
Now, as the wind suddenly changes direction, the pilot's problems quickly mount up.
The wind's kind of kicked around a little bit right now. It's 330 at 11.
Whoa.
It's a little better than it was.
Yeah, 330 is a tailwind, though.
The crew now face the problem of having the wind behind them when they land, greatly increasing the dangers of overshooting the runway. Then the controller calls in with more bad news.
Right now, I have a wind shear alert.
Wind shear is a sudden change of wind direction over a short distance. It is one of the most feared elements of a severe thunderstorm. To combat constantly shifting winds, the pilots are forced to throw away their previous approach plans and start again. They have to reverse the direction of their approach, so they will be landing into the wind.
Yeah, we're gonna need,
We would rather go into the headwind, sir.
The pilot's decision to land in the opposite direction is a prudent move, but it will create serious problems.
Okay, right turn 250.
The long way around?
Yes, sir. You're a little close to the airport.
Yeah, right.
250, that'll work.
As the pilots turn to their new approach, the aircraft's weather radar, which scans in front of the plane, loses track of the thunderstorms. Worse still, the turn delays landing by more than 10 minutes. And with every passing moment, the storms are growing in intensity.
Runway 4 right, 111.3042. I think that was the airport below us.
Yeah, right, okay.
Switching runways, keeping track of the storms, all add greatly to the pilot's heavy workload.
Okay, 2217, glide slope, intercept all the way down. Missed approached, right turn to 4000. Let's see, you got the airport, right? So
Yeah, I don't have the airport.
Well, I'm saying you've got the ILS.
Yeah, I got the ILS.
Airline pilots, they make their money when they're flying into bad weather. When the weather goes down, now all of a sudden the workload starts to increase because you have to factor in low clouds, rain, lightning, thunderstorms, wind. All of these elements start to bombard you the closer you get into the airport environment.
American 1420, it appears we have a second part of this storm moving through. The wind now is
340 at 16, gust 34.
With the storms worsening, the pilots need to make it to the airport as quickly as possible.
You want to accept the short approach, keep it tight?
Yeah, but if you can see the runway, because I don't quite see it.
Yeah, it's right there.
All right.
You see it?
You just point me in the right direction, I'll start slowing down. Give me flaps 11.
Damn, it's heading right over the field.
American 1420, did you call me?
We got the airport, but we're going right in between clouds. I think it's to my right,
Off my 3 o'clock low, about 4 miles.
American 1420, that's it. Do you want to shoot the visual approach, or you want to go out for the ILS?
A visual approach will allow 1420 to reach the airport faster than one that depends on instruments.
I can start the visual
If we can do it.
American 1420's cleared, visual approach, runway 4 right. If you lose it, need some help, let me know, please.
But a visual approach means the pilots must keep the runway in sight at all times. The transcripts now reveal rising confusion on the flight deck as the captain struggles to fix the position of the airport.
Okay, did you notice something? Did you see the airport there?
Where?
There, okay, right. You're on a base for it, okay? It's right there.
Well, I'm on a base now?
It's like a dog leg. We're coming in, and there it is, right there.
I lost it.
You're downwind of it. It's right there.
Well, I still don't see it. Just vector me. I don't know.
American 1420, monitor 118.7, runway 4 right, cleared to land. The wind now 330 at 21.
18.7 will monitor, American 1420, thanks. Cleared to land, runway 4. See
those red lights there. Now, what are they in relation to?
There's the runway. There's 2 runways.
Yeah, I know. See, we're losing it. I don't see how we can maintain visual.
The pilots now have to abandon their direct visual approach and request help from Little Rock's instrument landing system. But this delays landing even further.
Approach, American 1420.
American 1420, yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a cloud between us and the airport, and we've lost the field. We're on a vector.
Well, basically, we're on the last vector you gave us.
Which is like a dog leg, it looks like.
American 1420, can you fly heading 220? I'll take you out for the ILS.
This news footage shows the storm on the night of the crash. As heavy rain cuts visibility even further, Captain Bushman becomes frustrated.
See, I hate droning around visual at night and weather without having any clue where we are.
The thing that was really getting to me was I knew we were getting very low. I knew that the rain was not letting up and that we were being jolted around quite heavily.
See how we're going right in the middle of this crap?
Right.
Approach American 1420. I know you're doing your best, sir, but we're getting really close to this storm, and we'll keep it really tight if we have to.
The plane was rocking and rolling at that point. It was pretty doggone unstable. I don't know what made me aware, so doggone aware, that we were going to have a problem. I don't know what did that.
As Flight 1420 lines up for final approach, they are heading straight into the heart of the thunderstorm. The crisis for the flight crew is about to get even worse. With Flight 1420 4 minutes from touchdown, severe thunderstorms give the pilots another major problem. Blinding rain and thick cloud are obscuring the airfield. The visibility on the runway, known as RVR, is getting dangerously low.
We're going right into this.
American 1420. Right now we have heavy rain on the airport. I don't have new weather for you, but visibility is less than a mile. And the runway 4-right RVR is 3,000.
Visibility is down to 3,000 feet. The pilots are unsure if it's safe to land.
3,000?
Roger that, 3,000, American 1420.
This is 4 right, correct?
American 1420, that's correct, sir, and runway 4-right, clear to land. The wind's now 350 at 30, gusts 45.
Can we land?
030 at 45, American 1420.
3,000 RVR, we can't land on that.
No, 3,000 if
what
you
do
look
we
at...
need?
No, it's 2,400 RVR.
Okay, right.
Yeah, we're fine.
All right. 15. Landing gear down. And lights, please.
As we descended through a very dark black cloud. The rain seemed to be going horizontal.
It was windy enough, apparently outdoors, that the plane was moving around a lot. I'd never done this before. I buckled up really tight, almost uncomfortably tight, and I was concerned enough. I put my shoes back on and got ready to go. There was something going on that made me very nervous.
The crosswinds are way over the limit. The pilots could divert to another airport, but they don't, even as the weather gets worse.
Wind shear alert. Center field wind 350 at 32. Gusts 45. North boundary wind 310 at 29. Northeast boundary wind 320 at 32.
The jolts seemed to be much stronger than I'd ever felt. You could tell that the thunderheads were extremely close to the plane. I said words to the effect that if he tries to land in this weather, we'll crash.
Flaps 28.
Add 20.
Then visibility falls drastically below the limit.
American 1420, the runway 4-right RVR is now 1,600.
Damn.
The crew are rattled. Under pressure, they begin to make mistakes.
Can't see anything. Looking for 460.
It's there.
Couldn't see anything. The wind was throwing the plane around so violently. I think it was enough of a crosswind that I was afraid we were going to land on the wing. We felt like we were going to tip over. I mean, it just felt that bad.
You want 40 flaps?
Yeah, I thought I called it.
I knew the way he was jockeying the plane and the sounds of the engines that he was trying to get lined up for the runway, and I couldn't see it, and I couldn't see it, but I could tell we were close, and I kept thinking, where's the runway?
1,000 feet. 20. 40-40 land.
This is a can of worms.
Wind is 330 at 28.
I'm gonna stay above it a little.
There's a runway off to your right. You got it?
No.
I got the runway in sight. You're right on course.
I got it.
Stay where you
I got it.
Most of the people at that point in the plane were just holding on really tight, just looking forward. I mean, like rigid. I suspected the worst. I mean, I really did. We might not get down.
In the midst of fierce thunderstorms, Flight 1420 is about to land at Little Rock. Low visibility and high winds make the final approach treacherous.
Wind 330 at 25.
500 feet. Plus 20.
Wind 330 at 23.
Damn, we're off course. No, I can't see it. We're way off. I can't see anything. Got it? Got it! 100 feet. 50 feet. 40. 30. 20. 10.
We hit the runway real hard. We didn't slow down.
We're down. We're sliding. Oh, no.
We were still going very, very, very fast. And at that point, I thought, we're dead.
On the brakes!
It was just chaos. It was terrifying. Quite literally terrifying.
Other one! Other one, other one!
When the plane actually stopped, there was a moment of absolute, total silence.
There was fire in front of me, and I could see debris, and it was silent. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm dead.
Well, I knew we were in deep trouble. You know, it's a process that started, and in some way it's got to end. It's going to end, and when it ends, how do I get out of here?
Within those minutes, I heard a small scream, and I heard it get louder and louder and louder, like it was on a megaphone. And it hit me, that's my daughter. And it's like, oh, okay, we've got to get out of here. You know, we got to do something.
The passengers struggled to get out before fire engulfed the cabin.
I had a broken scapula, dislocated shoulder, and cracked ribs, and all sorts of stuff going on, but I didn't feel a thing. I just wanted to get out. I was not going to die in that thing. I got out of that plane probably in 10 seconds. It's like being in war. Go, go, go.
I'm yelling, get away from the plane. Run, get away from the plane. Go, go, go.
Some folks looked like they'd been in an explosion. Their clothes were tattered. I saw a man using his cell phone to call for help.
Okay, I don't know where we're at, but there's a road that goes around the airport. Well, we got a lot of people hurt.
Traveling at over 100 miles an hour, the aircraft ran off the end of the runway, plowed down a 25-foot embankment, and slammed into a steel walkway. The plane was ripped into several pieces. The wreckage finally came to rest on the muddy banks of the Arkansas River. Ten passengers died in the crash. Captain Bushman was killed instantly when the cockpit was split open by the steel walkway.
It was a shame I hadn't, literally a shame that I had not done more to save people. That's the worst nightmare I have.
The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board was immediately notified. Greg Feith was the NTSB's chief investigator.
The night American 1420 happened, I received a phone call about 1 o'clock in the morning. from our communications center at the NTSB advising that there had been an aircraft accident at Little Rock, and there may be some fatalities involved.
Fellow investigator Don Ike was quickly on the scene.
There's a sense of adrenaline as an accident occurs like this, where you're being launched to the accident scene. And there's a strong urge to get there, to try to find out what happened, to document the facts so we can prevent it from happening.
The NTSB set up a command center close to the site. They would spend the next 18 months piecing together the events that led to the crash.
We did have a basic idea when we got on scene of what had happened. We just didn't know why. We knew the airplane went off the end of the runway. We knew that the pilots couldn't stop it. We knew that the aircraft was destroyed going through this catwalk. We knew that the subsequent post-crash fire killed people. We just didn't know why at that point.
The NTSB worked backwards from the impact, piecing together the sequence of events from the final approach all the way back to Dallas-Fort Worth. The first question for investigators was why the pilots had been unable to stop the plane. Analysis of the tire tracks left by the skidding plane showed a complete loss of control after touchdown.
When you look at the width of those tire tracks, you then see that the airplane wasn't going straight, but in fact was sliding sideways. Here you have this machine that weighs 130, 140,000 pounds. It has 100 or so people on it. It is sliding uncontrolled off this runway.
Something had gone terribly wrong on landing, and investigators had to find out why. They questioned the survivors of Flight 1420, who would provide an extremely important clue. The NTSB investigators needed to find out why Flight 1420 had slid uncontrolled off the runway. They set out to interview surviving passengers, many of whom were local to Little Rock. Their eyewitness testimony would point the inquiry towards the most important mechanical system used to slow a plane down after landing.
We were really interested in were those passengers that were sitting in a position right near the wings who could look out the windows and tell us whether they saw the ground spoilers deploy.
Spoilers are large flaps that flip up on landing, literally spoiling the airflow over the wings. This prevents them from giving lift and allows braking to take effect. Crucially, none of the passengers saw the spoilers deploy. To check their testimony, the NTSB examined information from the airplane's black boxes. The flight data recorder, which monitors the systems on board during flight, confirmed that the spoilers had failed to deploy. The implications were catastrophic. Flight 1420 had no hope of stopping in time.
On the brakes! We're sliding! Oh, no!
So was the failure of the spoilers to deploy a mechanical problem? Or in the confusion of final approach, was it pilot error? To find out, the NTSB would make clever use of the cockpit voice recorder, or CVR.
Make it out. You want 40 flaps?
Yeah, I thought I called it.
One of the key elements that the CVR team was listening for was the setting of the spoiler handle. We saw on the flight data recorder that the ground spoilers didn't deploy. We wanted to know if the handle had been actually armed or not, and we were looking for a specific click sound. We couldn't find that sound on the accident CVR, which led us to believe that the handle was never in the armed position at touchdown.
Intensely busy in the cockpit, the pilots simply forgot to arm the spoilers. Had they deployed, the MD-80 aircraft might have overshot the runway, but it would have stopped before hitting the catwalk. The pilots had made serious and ultimately fatal errors, but investigators wanted to know why. They suspected that pressures earlier in the flight led to these mistakes. They turned their attention to the weather.
clear to us that severe weather had been in the area around the time of the accident. How it played a part was one of the things we had to try to discover. And putting the radar images in, the observations, trying to put it all together, would take weeks, of course, to get this information done.
The NTSB wanted to know what role the weather had played in the crash, and had the pilots been fully aware of the dangers.
See how we're going right in the middle of this crap.
One of the concerns that all pilots have when they're trying to land an aircraft is, of course, making sure that the crosswinds that they may experience don't exceed the capabilities of either themselves or the aircraft.
The wind's now 350 at 30, gusts 45.
Can we land?
This particular flight crew had a limitation, not imposed by themselves, but imposed by the company, and that was that they were not allowed to exceed a 10-knot crosswind on a wet runway.
Crosswind limits are clearly stated in the operating manual. The crew of 1420 were flying beyond regulation limits.
This is a can of worms.
There's a runway off to your right. You got it?
No.
The effect of the winds can be seen in this NTSB animation, showing the captain's desperate last maneuvers.
Winds definitely impacted the flight. If you look at the animation, you'll see them fighting the winds. Definitely not good.
We're down. On the brakes. Other one.
But when you start talking about a wet runway, thunderstorms, not good.
But were the pilots of 1420 aware of the hazards posed by the severe weather? For the NTSB, previous accidents had made the dangers of thunderstorms all too clear. In 1994, a US Air DC-9 fell victim to wind shear in North Carolina. The plane stalled at 250 feet and fell from the sky. A Delta TriStar crashed after flying into the most severe kind of wind shear that created an intense downdraft of air. So, should the crew of 1420 have aborted the approach?
There's the runway. There's two runways.
Yeah, I know. See, we're losing it. I don't see how we can maintain visual.
This NTSB weather animation overlays the path of the aircraft with ground radar images of the storm. Bushman and Origal landed in lightning, torrential rain and hail, and the crosswinds gusting well over the limit.
Based on the information that we had from ground-based weather radar, the flight crew of 1420 should have been seeing the majority of that storm. They would have been seeing the leading edge going green, rapidly changing the yellow to bright red.
Can't see anything. Looking for 460.
As they progressed towards Little Rock, they started to paint the bad weather not only on their onboard radar, but they could see out the window lightning. And one of the key statements that this captain made, which basically summarized the entire flight, was the captain saying,
I hate droning around visual at night in weather without having any clue where we are.
I hate droning around at night when I don't know where I am. That was such a key statement. It was at that point, by an experienced 10,000-hour captain, that he should have abandoned the approach going into Little Rock and either gone to his alternate or made his way back to Dallas. But to make a statement like that and then continue an approach to an airport where you have a thunderstorm in progress over the airport is a recipe for disaster.
But the pilots were not the only ones to be heavily criticized. As the investigation continued, American Airlines flight policy would come under fire, and an industry-wide scandal was about to be exposed. For months after the crash of Flight 1420, the NTSB dug deeper into the circumstances surrounding the accident. The question was, who would take responsibility? American Airlines were reluctant to admit that their pilots had knowingly flown into a severe thunderstorm. Initially, they tried to pin the blame on the controller at Little Rock. Americans started legal action against the authorities responsible for airport controllers. Americans' lawyers claimed that the crew of Flight 1420 had not been given all the current weather information.
American 1420, your equipment's a lot better than what I have. How's that final for 22 left looking?
But after interviewing the controller at Little Rock, investigators were unconvinced.
It's highly unlikely that the flight crew wasn't sufficiently informed about the nature of the weather and the severity of the weather, not only en route, but of course during the course of the landing at Little Rock.
The focus turned back on the pilots. Lawyers representing the passengers were determined to get American Airlines to accept liability for the crash.
I mean, it is about money in a way, because you want to make them pay. Because I saw the letters that they would write back to my lawyer, minimizing what we had been through, minimizing my daughter's burns, cuts, the psychological effects it had on my son at age 15, and my daughter and me, and just minimizing everything. So you want to find a way to hurt him.
Renee Solomons and many other survivors attended the NTSB public hearings held in Little Rock 8 months after the disaster. With the captain dead, the co-pilot was the first to testify.
As we went off the end of the runway, I could see the runway lights coming up, and I knew we were going off the end of the runway. I couldn't see anything in front of us, and all I thought was the gear would collapse, and we would continue to slide. It's got to be okay. And then all of a sudden, I felt the impact.
Well, I followed it as close as I could. You bet. I mean, I wanted to know what happened.
I went to all of the NTSB hearings. I was outraged. I was mad. For me, they didn't ask him the right questions. You know, I wanted to ask him, what were you thinking? Why did you all play chicken with our lives?
The co-pilot's testimony was highly controversial. In his account of the final moments of the flight, he claimed to have told the captain to abort the approach, otherwise known as a go-around.
Who can call for abandoning the approach?
Either pilot.
Did you call for a go-around at any time?
Yes, sir, I did. It sounds like after reviewing the tape, you can definitely hear the go and the around. It seems like he talked the same time I did, and I looked over at him, and he brought the airplane back on course.
However, when NTSB specialists studied the cockpit voice tapes, they couldn't hear this statement.
Damn, we're off course. No, I can't see it. Way off.
Even though he stood by that statement, we could never validate it. That led to a controversial finding because we weren't really sure if that took place or not.
The NTSB asked tough questions of the co-pilot, but was American Airlines training also at fault? Greg Feith put an American Airlines manager on the stand. What were the company rules for pilots flying near thunderstorms?
When asked the question, he basically responded that he just didn't want his pilots flying into that type of weather.
Our pilots are forbidden to enter or depart a terminal area blanketed by thunderstorms.
To the NTSB, this policy simply wasn't clear-cut enough.
Well, that's a very subjective call for a pilot. Pilots need boundaries. You have to set limits. If there's convective activity, that is thunderstorm activity, it's within 5 nautical miles of the airport. There's lightning, there's wind shear. Don't go there.
The deeper they looked, the more the NTSB found that flying into thunderstorms was disturbingly widespread. Extraordinary evidence given at the hearings revealed that the problem spread through the whole industry. Expert analysts from MIT spent weeks recording the flight paths of planes landing at Dallas-Fort Worth. They waited for thunderstorms and watched how pilots reacted. Their animation plots the planes coming into land, overlaid with radar images of the storms. Anything yellow or orange is a potentially severe thunderstorm. Of the 2,000 encounters with thunderstorms, 2 out of 3 pilots flew into the storm and landed their aircraft.
I was very surprised by the testimony at the public hearing, given the fact that they're flying the best equipment, typically have the best training, have the best information available to them. For those decisions to be made to continue into harm's way, it was very surprising to me that they tried to do that. Pilots know that if we go into that thunderstorm, we may not come out of that thunderstorm, and if we do, it may not be basically in one piece.
Why did so many pilots fly into danger? The MIT researchers found pilots were more reckless if they were behind schedule, if it was night, and if aircraft in front of them were also flying into bad weather.
In the Little Rock case, 2 of those 3 elements were present. It was night, and they were running late.
The MIT investigation was chilling evidence that the crash at Little Rock was part of a much wider problem.
We're not seeing a major improvement, put it bluntly. There's a limited time for training. Weather was a significant part that set up the stage of this accident. We do not condone any operation to be conducted in such weather. It is a known severe weather hazard, and it should have been suspended, no operation.
Ironically, it also emerged that new technology may be partly to blame for bad decision-making.
We're desensitizing pilots. We're putting weather radar on board aircraft. We're putting wind shear detection systems on airplanes. Most of these systems only react when you're in the hazard. That time, it may be too late.
But the root causes behind the crash of 1420 went even deeper. Why were the pilots so determined to land? Greg Feith found the answer back at Dallas-Fort Worth, before the flight even left the ground. There he found signs of a deadly condition in aviation known as get-there-itis.
There may have been a sense of get-there-itis. The flight crew knew that they were pushing their 14-hour duty day. It had been a long duty day. The airport's right there. Let's try it. Let's see if we can accomplish the mission. Pilots are goal-oriented. We're mission-oriented. We will stick our nose in there to try and see if we can accomplish the mission. Sometimes we will accomplish that mission, but sometimes we get too far into it that we can't bail out. We don't have any more options, and bad things happen.
For Flight 1420, the pressures of get-there-itis sparked a fatal series of mistakes and misjudgments. At the end of a long day, rushing to beat the storms and get the passengers to their destination, the crew of Flight 1420 made the basic mistake that cost 11 people their lives. They forgot to arm the spoilers.
They were so busy trying to get the plane on the ground that they forgot to do what they needed to do. They didn't have time to do it.
After the accident, American Airlines revised their checklist procedures. Both pilots must now confirm that the spoilers are armed, ready for landing. In October 2001, the NTSB published their report. They concluded that the 2 main causes of the crash were first, the decision to land in a thunderstorm, and second, the pilot's failure to arm the spoilers. American Airlines declined to take part in this film or comment on the findings.
As an investigator, I had over 2 years to basically criticize and determine what the captain was trying to accomplish. That particular captain had seconds to make decisions based on the information he was getting. And while it's unfair for an acts investigator like myself to start pointing the finger, I wasn't there.
I blame them, but I'm not angry per se at them. I don't waste my time with anger on them.
They'd got nothing but flack. You can understand it, but I can't understand a person, wanting to kill himself either. We've been out and visited his grave at the Air Force Academy a couple, 3 times, and the guy just got caught up in a bad situation. I mean, been there, done that.
One year after the crash, the survivors of Flight 1420 gathered at the site to remember those who died. For surviving passengers, the effects of the crash are long-lasting and profound.
We, as a family, worked long and hard to work through it. We had many talks. It blew apart a lot of relationships. You find out who your real friends are.
I cannot do enough to mitigate what happened to the individuals on an airplane. Life is a precious thing, and you're definitely here for a very short time. You know, all of a sudden, your life looks like about a second and a half long.
The impact of the crash is something that I try to block out of my mind because I still feel a reaction.
People ask me if I'm okay. Well, no, I'm not okay. No, we'll never be okay. I mean, what is this okay stuff? You're different. And deal with it. I mean, that's the way we're going to be.
The day after it happened, when Adam and I were in the hospital in Samantha, Adam and I got up and we looked out the window and we just couldn't believe that life went on. We just couldn't believe cars were driving and it was sunny and life went on, you know, because for us, life stopped.
Buenas noches, senor. American 965 leaving 23...
In 1995, only days before Christmas, an American Airlines Boeing 757 is on its final approach to Cali, Colombia.
Cali approach, American 965.
The pilots are calm and relaxed. They don't know they've made a terrible mistake.
965, 9,000 feet.
They've strayed more than 10 miles off course and no longer have a clue where they are.
Oh, shit! Pull up, baby.
In complete darkness, the jet carrying 163 passengers and crew is heading into mortal danger.
Okay.
I think we knew that something imminent was around the corner.
Up, baby! More! Up!
Flight 965 crashed into a 9,000-foot mountain. The crash reverberated throughout the aviation industry. How could one of the most technologically advanced aircraft in the world, equipped with a state-of-the-art navigational system and flown by some of the most skilled pilots, crash into the side of a mountain? On December the 20th, 1995, American Airlines Flight 965 is preparing to depart Miami International Airport.
Make our slot, but, well...
Its destination is Cali, Colombia. Flight 965 is scheduled to leave at 4:40 p.m., but has already been delayed for 30 minutes at the gate to allow for connecting passengers.
Surely gonna call us any second.
The Doosan's only just made it.
In Miami, they tell us that we have to rush because the plane gonna leave to Cali very soon. Definitely, we were very happy because we know we're gonna fly that night.
So you made it just in time. Just in time. You won't believe it. Go from New Jersey to Miami. We almost missed the flight.
Mercedes Ramirez, along with her mother and father, managed to get on the flight at the last minute.
We were on standby, so we weren't sure if our names were going to be called off to actually get on that flight. We heard our names and we were excited because like, yes, we got on the flight.
But it's very old American.
Flight 965 finally leaves the gate at 5:14 p.m., 34 minutes late. But the problems aren't over yet. As they taxi towards the runway, the tower informs them of yet another delay.
American 965, stand by.
Heavy seasonal traffic clogs the runways, and they're forced to wait another hour and 20 minutes on the tarmac.
Ready, that's all there is to it.
Wait,
and
American 965.
Finally, 2 hours late, Flight 965 is cleared for takeoff.
27 right. Fly the runway heading. Clear for takeoff.
Merry Christmas. Cleared for takeoff. 27 right. American 965. You do a great job. Good night.
Captain Nicholas Tafuri, aged 57, is in charge of Flight 965. He's one of American Airlines' premier pilots, with more than 13,000 hours of flying experience, over 2,000 of them in the 757. He'd flown to Cali only 6 days earlier.
200, the heading. Climb to 16.
That's 16 American 965.
At the controls is First Officer Donnie R. Williams, age 39. Although he's been flying for American for 9 years, Flight 965 is his first trip to Cali. It's the holiday season, and the plane is filled with passengers starting their Christmas celebrations.
Everybody on that plane was either going back home for the Christmas holidays to visit their families, so I think everybody was just happy and excited to go back.
The day of the flight, December the 20th, is a very special day for passenger Mercedes Ramirez. Mercedes is a university student from Missouri. It's her 21st birthday, and this trip is a gift from her parents.
And usually we spent Christmas in Kansas City at home, but they wanted to do something special, and we had never spent the holidays with our family in Colombia, so it was a big deal for us. Since we flew standby, I couldn't sit with both my mom and my dad all in one row, so my mother and I were seated next to each other. I was by the window, she was in the middle, and then there was a passenger who was about my age who was in the aisle seat, and then my father was in another row behind us. And so, nothing out of the ordinary at all, just a normal flight.
19-year-old Mauricio Reyes is sitting beside Mercedes' mother. Reyes is a student at the University of Michigan. Gonzalo Dusan and his wife Nancy and their 2 children, Michelle and Gonzalo Jr., are seated nearby.
We were very excited because the first time, we're going with my family to pass, Christmas over there in Cali. We wanted to see our families, members, brothers, sisters, to see our city again.
Two hours and 45 minutes into the flight, the plane is cruising at an altitude of 37,000 feet and on a pre-programmed flight path heading towards Cali's airport.
36 miles.
They're flying a Boeing 757, a state-of-the-art airplane equipped with highly sophisticated computer systems. When programmed with the appropriate data, the onboard computer, known as the flight management system, can control the aircraft from takeoff to landing. It can be a pilot's best friend, or in the case of Flight 965, their worst nightmare. An awkward moment an hour before their scheduled arrival in Cali makes Mercedes Ramirez change seats.
My mother had been talking to the college student who was next to her, and I think she was trying to kind of set me up with him because she kept on saying, oh, well, my daughter's in college, and my daughter's this, and my daughter's that. So I was very embarrassed. So I got up from my seat and moved to the row behind us, and I sat with my father.
The seemingly trivial decision will prove to be her lifesaver. It's a clear, moonless night with visibility more than 6 miles.
And that's just how it works. That's our scenario.
But Captain Tafuri is now getting concerned about their arrival time in Cali.
Debrief, 1 hour sign in, and you can't move that up at all because it's an FAA thing.
FAA regulations require a minimum number of hours on the ground before the cabin crew can fly again. The plane and its crew are scheduled to leave Colombia the following morning, but the unexpected delays in Miami means the plane may be late into Cali and not able to leave on time tomorrow.
When you want descent, let me know a few minutes early in case there's a language problem, okay?
Sure.
Any further delays will jeopardize their return flight the next day.
Well, let's see, we got 136 miles to the VOR and 32,000 feet to lose and slow down to boots, so might as well get started.
If they land within the next 25 minutes, they'll beat the deadline.
All right, sir. And if you'd keep the speed up on the descent, it'd help us too, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Gonzalito, let your sister sit beside the window.
Gonzalo de San's children quarrel over the window seat, not knowing that the consequences will be dire.
And I remember I told them before Cali, when the plane started to lose altitude, so we're going to see the valley, the city, very nice with a lot of lights on it, because usually by December, by Christmas time, they decorate, the mountains with different colors, lights, and everything. Then they start to fight for the window side.
And I was fighting with my brother, Gonzalito. We were fighting for the window.
Okay, Gonzalito, let your sister have a chance by the window.
And I'm like, oh, I want to see the lights. I want to see the airport. And he got mad.
Okay, Michelle, you go sit by the window. Go sit with your cousin. Good boy, Gonzalito. Okay, Michelle, take a look at the lights. Let's come sit beside me. Come sit. We're almost there. Michelle, can you see the lights outside the window?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking.
We have begun our descent for landing at Cali. It's a lovely evening.
As we'd expected, we'll pass a shower or two on the way in.
This lovely evening is about to end. In 30 seconds, the pilots will make the first of a series of mistakes, which will result in the death of nearly everyone on board. American Airlines Flight 965 is on its final descent, roughly 63 miles from Cali. Cali's Aragon Airport is situated at the end of a long valley. On both sides of the valley are towering mountain ranges that stretch to almost 14,000 feet. It's a formidable sight.
One of these nuts done?
No, thank you.
You want your water? You want to wait until we get on the ground about your water?
No, I'll wait for the ground.
To guide the plane on its proper pre-programmed flight path, the aircraft must pass over a series of waypoints. These are generally radio beacons at fixed positions along the route. The plane's computer picks up the signal from these beacons, one after the other, and guides it safely to the destination. Flight 965 is now approaching the waypoint called Tulua. Tuluá is a radio beacon at the head of the valley which leads to Cali. After passing Tuluá, they should fly down the valley and pass over the final waypoint called Rosso. Then they fly past the airport, turn right, and land from the south.
She did really well.
È molto interessante. È molto interessante, sì.
Cali approach, American 965.
American 965, good evening. Go ahead.
Buenas noches, senor. American 965.
Cali Air Traffic Controller Nelson Rivera will oversee the final approach of Flight 965. But he has a problem. Insurgents, opposed to the Colombian government, have blown up the radar installation. Rivera has no way of knowing where planes are until they radio their position.
The distance, DME from Cali?
Without radar, the air traffic controller must rely on the flight crew to provide the aircraft's distance to the runway.
The DME is 6'3".
The DME is the distance measuring equipment in the Boeing cockpit.
Roger. American 965 is clear to Cali.
Descend and maintain 5,000 feet. Altimeter?
3002. Report Tuluá.
Okay, understood. Cleared direct to Cali, VOR, report Tuluá.
Affirmative.
It's a misunderstanding. Captain Tafuri thinks he's being told to fly direct to Cali and forget all about Tuluá. But the controller needs him to report when he passes Tuluá so that he knows where the plane is.
To me, the word directly means that he was authorized to go directly to Cali, that there was no delay. Therefore, he had to inform us of his position in Tuluá, because we don't have radar. I needed him to inform me of that exact location.
Tafuri punches direct to Cali in his computer. Since the plane no longer has to pass over them, all the waypoints between his present position and Cali will now be erased, including Tuluá, the one he's now approaching.
Put direct Cali for you in there.
Okay, thank you.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing. Thank you.
And I remember they gave us the order to put the back of the seat straight. I remember that. And everybody was, so happy because we were very close to the city.
He 11 minutes before their estimated time of arrival.
Go ahead, please.
Sir, the wind is calm.
Air traffic control asks the flight crew if they'd like to land on runway 19,
You want to shoot the 19 straight in?
instead of their planned approach to runway 01.
Yeah, we'll have to scramble to get down. We can do it.
Yes, sir. We'll
Need a lower altitude right away, though.
Roger. The American 965 is cleared to VOR DME.
Okay.
The pilots are pleased. Runway 19 is a straight-in approach from the north. They won't have to lose precious time by circling the airport. But there isn't much time. They need to start getting the plane down quickly. Williams deploys the speed brakes. The brakes are flaps on the top of the wings. When they're raised, they reduce lift and increase the plane's rate of descent.
Approach runway 19.
Roto number 1 arrival. Report.
This split-second decision to land on runway 19 sets off a chain of events that will end in disaster.
Arrival will report VOR. Thank you, sir.
Report Tuluá, VOR.
Report Tuluá.
I gotta give you a Tuluá first of all. You want to go right to Cal or to Tuluá?
I thought he said the Rosso 1 arrival.
Yeah, he did. We got time to pull that out.
Events begin to unravel very quickly in the cockpit. The pilots have to locate the new charts for the approach to 19, enter the new route into the computer, and still fly the plane.
And Tuluá 1 Rosso. Yeah, there it is. See, that comes off Tuluá.
They're getting totally confused. The controller keeps asking them to report when they've passed Tuluá. But having erased it from their computer, they have no idea where it is. Captain Tafuri asks the tower if they can forget Tulua and fly directly to Roseau, their last waypoint before the runway.
Can American Airlines 965 go direct to Roseau?
And then do the Roseau arrival, sir.
Affirmative. Take the Roseau 1 and runway 19er. The wind is calm.
All right, Roseau, the Roseau 1219. Thank you, American 965.
Report Tulua at 21 miles and 5,000 feet.
Okay, report Tulua.
The controller is still asking them to report passing the Tulua beacon. Without radar, he doesn't realize that they're already past it and are speeding down the valley towards the airport. Captain Tafuri now makes another fateful decision. Having decided that they're going to head for the Roseau waypoint instead, he punches R into his computer. The computer database responds by offering a list of more than 10 waypoints to choose from, all beginning with R. Normally, the nearest one, Roseau, would be at the top of the list, but tonight it's not. Captain Tafuri doesn't notice and pushes the execute button. At over 300 miles per hour and descending at a rate of approximately 1,300 feet per minute, Flight 965 begins to veer off on a new and deadly course.
I never imagined that they were deflecting the route in addition to losing altitude. Because I didn't have radar.
In the cockpit of Flight 965, the pilots are completely unaware of what they've done. They're busy studying charts as their plane crosses the mountains into unknown territory. For more than a minute, American Airlines Flight 965 has been turning off its proper course and into the mountains. Captain Tafuri and First Officer Williams suddenly notice that their aircraft is taking them somewhere that they don't want to go.
Let's go right to Tulua, first of all, okay?
Yeah, where are we headed?
17.7.
Captain Tafuri is floundering in the pitch darkness. If he could only find the Tulua waypoint, he could get his bearings. He switches from one computer system to another and then manually enters the radio frequency for the Tulua beacon.
Okay, I'm getting it. 17.7 just doesn't seem right on mine. I don't know why.
Left turn. So you want a left turn back around to ULQ?
Nah, hell no. Let's press on to...
Press on to where, though?
Tulua.
Hopelessly lost, and less than 2 minutes from impact, Tafuri decides to press on with his doomed approach.
Let's go to Cali, first of all, okay? We fucked up here, didn't we?
Yeah.
Go direct CLO. How did we get fucked up here? Come to the right now. Come to the right now.
The pilots don't know it, but when the plane veered off course, it crossed over the mountains. They're now in another valley, parallel with the one they should be flying down. Passengers are completely unaware that in less than 60 seconds, the aircraft traveling more than 210 miles an hour is going to crash.
We're almost there.
It's that fucking Tulua I'm not getting for some reason. See, I can't... Okay, no. Tulua's fucked up.
Okay, yeah.
But I can put it in the box if you want.
I don't want Tulua. Let's just go to the extended center line of...
Which is Roseau.
Roseau.
Well, why don't you just go direct to Roseau then, all right?
Okay, let's...
I'm gonna put that over to you.
They decide to give up on Tulua and make straight for the airport. They don't realize that there's now a wall of mountains between them and Cali.
965 altitude.
965.
9,000 feet.
Roger.
Distance now.
Shit!
The plane's ground proximity warning system is telling them they're about to crash.
965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
He didn't answer.
No me volvió a contestar.
He never answered again.
Easy does it. Easy does it.
I could feel that we were just violently just going up. And I felt like I was in a roller coaster ride or something, and the turbulence was absolutely horrible. And by that time, people were screaming, and everybody knew on the flight that something was very wrong.
Too low. Terrain. Easy does it. Easy does it. Up, baby.
Instinctively, I reached over and I grabbed my father's hand, and I put my head in my lap. In my mind, I just kept on thinking, come on, just straighten it out, straighten it out.
Up, baby. More, more. Up, up, up.
These were the last words on the cockpit voice recorder.
American 965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
At 9:42 p.m. on its final approach to runway 19,
American 965, can you hear me?
American Airlines Flight 965 seemingly vanishes without a trace.
American 965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
Nunca me había pasado eso, era la primera vez.
I never experienced anything like this before. This was the first time that I lost a plane and the crew was not responding.
Es muy difícil asimilar.
It is very difficult to grasp the moment.
Cuando la aeronave no contesta, uno
When the
mira
plane
hacia
didn't
afuera,
answer,
que nosotros
I
trabajamos
looked
en el
outside from the control tower.
hacia afuera. En
I
ese
could
momento
see from
empezó a
there the
buscar.
sky.
El tiempo estaba muy bueno.
I started to look for the plane. The night was clear, and I thought I could see the plane coming. But in this case, I never saw the plane.
Nunca vi la aeronave.
Moments after the plane's scheduled arrival, airport monitors indicate a 7-minute delay. Friends and family wait with anticipation for the arrival of their loved ones. As the revised arrival time comes and goes, rumors begin to circulate throughout the terminal that air traffic control has lost contact with Flight 965. In an instant, joy turns to shock as cries that the plane has crashed spread throughout the terminal. Locals living near the town of Buga, north of Cali, report hearing a massive explosion. Rescue teams race to the town, which lies near the base of a local mountain range that stretches as high as 10,000 feet. It's now 3 a.m., almost 6 hours after the crash. The first elements of the search and rescue team are trekking up the side of El Diluvio mountain. There are no roads. It's completely cut off. In the midst of tons of twisted and torn metal lies 21-year-old Mercedes Ramirez. Her last memory prior to impact is grabbing her father's hand and the deafening sound from the back of the plane of the tail section striking trees.
The next memory I have is the next day. It's daylight. I wake up and I see the sunlight around me, and I don't know where I am. And what's around me looks like a landfill, like a trash dump. And so as I'm laying there, I'm thinking, where in the world am I?
Mercedes is critically injured with severe internal injuries and a shattered leg.
Help! Is anybody out there?
19-year-old college student Mauricio Reyes also survives the impact and responds to Mercedes' cry for help.
Can you move?
I can try. I'm not sure. My leg is bent backwards.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Okay.
Help me, please.
Okay.
The only way for me to get out was having to drag myself over people. And I remember this lady who I had to drag myself over, and I'll never forget her. Looking back, I think, oh my goodness, that was someone's mom, or that was someone's sister, or someone's wife. But at that time, she was just an object that I needed to get over to get out.
Can you move? Can you stand up?
I think my leg is broken.
Okay, we'll try.
Okay. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
And when he lifted me was when the first time I actually felt pain. It just felt like an electrical current going up and down my leg. So he laid me back down, and then he went off to try to find help.
Okay? Okay. Just stay here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. Help! Is anybody out there?
While I was laying there, more of the thoughts that were coming into my mind was, why me? Why did this happen to me?
At first light, the Colombian Air Force starts searching for the crash site. They were unable to leave earlier because they had no night vision equipment. On the ground, rescue teams which had been climbing throughout the night are approaching the summit of El Diluvio.
When I wake up, I start to feel the pain in my back. Then when I hear the sound of the helicopters, I realize something happened. I started to feel panic.
Help me! Someone please help me!
Daddy, I'm here. Papa.
Michelle?
Gonzalo Dusan's 6-year-old daughter, Michelle, still strapped in her seat, answers her father's desperate call for help.
Keep talking to me, okay? Michelle?
So I realized that my daughter was alive too. Then I started to crawl to try to look for where the voice of my daughter coming from.
Michelle, please, I'm coming. Where are you?
Dusan struggles to crawl through the broken and twisted cabin to reach his daughter, but she's pinned beneath the wreckage.
Ow! Ow! My leg hurts. When the plane crashed, my legs, I had my seatbelt on, and I guess the crash was so deep that my legs, like, speared into the ground. Okay. I tried to move myself, but my legs hurt. They hurt really bad. I couldn't pick myself up. Daddy, it hurts.
Okay, Michelle. I'm going to get some water for you soon and bring it back, okay?
Then I tried to crawl more to try to get out.
Despite a severe back injury, Dusan manages to crawl towards a small open section of the fuselage.
I saw a hole behind me, and I said inside me, I said, God, help me to get out from here.
Help us! Over here! Help us!
When I get up of the fuselage of the plane, I remember my son talked to me.
Gonzalito!
And he say, Father, Father, help me.
Despite a desperate search, Gonzalo Dusan is unable to locate his son amongst the wreckage.
Gonzalito!
Realizing there's no way to get off the mountain by foot, the survivors of Flight 965 are still unsure if they will ever make it. The temperatures have fallen dramatically, and without protective clothing, they could die of exposure in a matter of hours.
Stay awake for Papa, okay? Okay, Michelle?
Since first light, the Colombian Air Force has been searching for the crash site without success. With each passing minute, the 4 survivors, all gravely injured, take one step closer to death.
Michelle!
Shortly after daybreak, the crew of a Black Hawk chopper spots the crash site.
I could see the helicopters perfectly from where I was at, and even though I could see them perfectly, I didn't know if they could see me.
When I saw the helicopter very close to the trees, to the top of the trees, I started moving the blanket. I started moving the blanket, then so I say, oh, they saw me, they're coming for us.
More than 8 hours after impact, and after enduring life-threatening injuries and near-freezing temperatures, the survivors of Flight 965 are about to be rescued.
People finally know that we're here, and they're finally here to rescue us after so many hours of being stuck on that side of that mountain. So seeing them was one of the greatest things ever.
They came and they throw a rock, and the people start to descend. And I was so happy because I feel that they're gonna help us. The first thing I told them, my son is alive. My son is alive, but I don't know where he is. Help me to find him, please help me to find him. And my daughter is alive, I told them. She's inside the fuselage.
As the rescue team divided up, one went into the fuselage to free Michelle. Another scoured the site for Gonzalo Dusan Jr. Gonzalo is found hanging in the branch of a nearby tree. He's been suspended in the air above the crash site for more than 8 hours. His condition is grave. Mauricio Reyes is the first to be airlifted off the mountain. But low cloud cover grounds the chopper and delays the removal of the remaining survivors. Fearing that Michelle Dusan may not survive the wait, volunteers decided to take a calculated risk. They fashioned a makeshift stretcher out of a piece of the wreckage and began to evacuate Michelle off the mountain by foot. Shortly after Michelle Dusan left the crash site, the weather clears and the remaining survivors are airlifted to a base camp halfway down the mountain. and then to hospital for emergency medical treatment. More than 13 hours after the crash of Flight 965, Michelle Dusan is the last survivor to emerge from the jungle of El Diluvio alive. Surgeons attempt to save the life of her brother, Gonzalo Jr., but he dies on the operating table from massive internal injuries.
I don't think that there is any medical explanation or scientific explanation. There is no explanation. That out of 159 people that were strong and like tough, that me, a little girl, a 6-year-old girl, could survive out of so many people that were so much stronger than me. I just thank God so much.
Of the 163 passengers and crew on board Flight 965, only 4 survived the crash. Experts will later label the accident a non-survivable event. All of the survivors were seated within 2 rows of one another, just above the wing. Huge girders carrying the wings make this the strongest part of the plane. Despite this, Mercedes Ramirez lost both her parents on her 21st birthday.
December 20th, 1995, my life changed forever and has never been the same ever since. There was 160 people on that flight who, the moment that plane hit that mountain, all their hopes and dreams were instantly lost. But for some reason, I've been given a second chance at life, and so I'm going to try to make the best of it.
The successful evacuation of the survivors led to the gruesome task of recovering the bodies of the 159 souls who perished on the slopes of Mount Diluvio. Investigators now descend on the crash site to try to find out how one of the most sophisticated airliners, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, could veer off course and crash more than 35 miles from the airport. The investigation was led by Aeronautica Civil, Colombia's equivalent of the FAA. Assisting the Colombians were investigators from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, including Dave Ivey.
The wreckage and debris report indicated that the airplane actually impacted the eastern side of the mountain as it was trying to proceed back west to get into the valley. And the main body of the wreckage cleared the mountain top, or the ridge, I should say, and landed over on the western side, which is inside the valley area.
Also following the investigation was Dave Simon, an airline captain who knew the Cali approach well.
In the days that followed the crash, the industry was shocked. They were shocked because they didn't know how could a sophisticated airplane like the 757, flown by a well-respected international carrier like American Airlines with well-trained crews, get so far off course. Nobody could figure out how did it happen, why did it happen.
Sabotage and mechanical malfunction were soon ruled out. Attention began to focus on the action of the flight crew. The discovery of the black boxes enabled the investigators to follow the final moments of American Airlines Flight 965.
There is never one single item or error that typically brings an airplane down. There's an error chain, and a chain is made up of many links. The airplane was en route to Cali. As they were approaching from a distance out, the controller offered them a straight-in landing.
Are you able to approach
runway 19er?
Would you like to shoot the 19 straight in? Yeah, we'll have to scramble to get down. We can do it.
When they first accepted the approach, the first officer remarked that we do need to get down in a hurry in order to accomplish this.
Yes, sir. We'll need a lower altitude right away, though.
At the time the crew accepted the approach to runway 19, they were too high, too fast, and too close in to safely make this approach.
To lose altitude, the first officer deploys the speed brakes. This action will come back to haunt the flight crew in the final segment of the flight.
The fact that they accepted that runway put the crew in a rushed and hurried manner.
Maybe at Tallulah, first of all. You want to go right to Cal or to Tallulah?
I thought he said the Rosso 1 arrival.
Yeah, he did. We got time to pull that out?
The flight crew now needs to study the approach charts and reprogram the computer. Meanwhile, the airplane is moving at more than 5 miles per minute.
And when you start to rush and you can't prepare in an adequate amount of time, then additional errors start to occur.
Because they're rushed and in a hurry and scrambling, they then make a dangerous request.
Can American Airlines 965 go direct to Rosso?
And then do the Rosso arrival, sir.
Affirmative. Take the Rosso 1 and runway 19er.
When the controller said affirmative, take the Rosso 1, he meant use the Rosso 1 arrival procedure, although the crew thought he meant to go direct to Rosso.
That's not a good idea, because to proceed direct to Rosso is the last point just before the runway. And Rosso is the last point before landing, not the first point that you should be targeting. And this miscommunication really dealt with the pilot believing one thing and the air traffic controller believing another. That was another link, in my view, that was part of the error chain.
Where are we?
The crew looks at their charts in front of them, and they see the fix Rosso, and it is identified by the letter R. So they naturally put R into the computer, thinking it will take them directly to Rosso.
The computer offers a list of R's to choose from, but unbeknownst to the pilots, none of them is Rosso.
Habit has shown, and the system is designed to place the one that is closest to your airplane first. And so here was an R that showed up first, and he selected that.
A map display in front of the pilot shows the proposed course to the waypoint he's selected. It will take the plane left into the mountains.
According to American Airlines procedure, prior to executing an input such as this to select the R, you confirm with the other pilot, does this look correct to you?
965, 9,000 feet.
This clearly was not done. If it had been, they would have seen a dotted line showing a provisional path from the nose of the airplane, turning and going back to about their 7 o'clock position.
Captain Tafuri hastily presses the execute button.
In aviation, we call that fast-fingered Freddy. When you don't confirm anything, you're in a big hurry to punch something in the computer, and you don't confirm where it's really going to take you.
Yeah, it's a left turn.
Yeah, I gotta identify that fucker, though.
Unfortunately, the crew does not know that R stands for another fix that is 132 miles away behind them at about their 7 o'clock position, and that's where the airplane starts to go to.
The flight crew of American Airlines 965 has unwittingly directed their aircraft off its intended course and into mortal danger.
Where are we?
The plane was simply doing what it was programmed to do. In this case, it's to fly to Bogota, 130 miles away.
More than a minute into the turn, the pilots are unaware that the plane is flying away from Cali and is heading dangerously off course.
The first officer's getting the charts out, the captain's getting the charts out. They're trying to tune radios. No one's flying the airplane, no one's watching what happens, and they assume that the automation is going to take care of them. Sometimes it will, but in this case it didn't.
Where are we? We're going out to...
Let's go right to Tallulah, first of all, okay?
Yeah, where are we headed?
17.7 ULQ. What's with the ULQ? What happened here?
There's an old saying in aviation, never point an airplane someplace that your brain hasn't been 5 minutes earlier.
The American 965, distance now?
What did you want, sir?
Distance DME?
In this case, the airplane got in front of them. It was flying what was selected. And in fact, it was flying beyond the pilot's recognition of where it was supposed to be traveling.
The pilots had lost what's referred to as situational awareness.
Left turn, so you want a left turn back around
Nah,
the
hell
ULQ.
no, let's press on
Well, we're pressing to where, though?
Tallulah.
That's a right U.
Once they became unsure of their position, once they became confused and disoriented, that's the time to click off the automation and to basically abandon the approach, climb to the minimum safe altitude, and to go to Cali.
Let's go to direct to Cali.
965 altitude?
Instead of abandoning the approach and gaining altitude, Flight 965 continued its deadly descent. When the warning sounded that the plane was about to crash into the ground, First Officer Williams disengaged the autopilot within 1 second, but forgot to retract the speed brakes which had been deployed earlier.
965, this is Cali approach. Can you hear me?
According to the official report, had they remembered to lower the speed brakes, the plane could have cleared the mountain with room to spare.
This accident is known as a CFIT accident, which means controlled flight into terrain. By that I mean the airplane was controlled by the crew, and it was a perfectly normal functioning airplane, and the crew flew the airplane into the mountain. It's one of the leading causes of accidents over the last 100 years, and still is a problem.
Both these pilots were experienced pilots flying the 757 for American Airlines. And both these pilots were good pilots. And I think it's like anything else. Two good pilots were led astray by a problem that they were trying to figure out. And at the time, they failed to do the basic thing, fly the airplane.
A court eventually ruled that the pilots of Flight 965 had shown willful misconduct during the approach to Cali Airport. Survivor Mercedes Ramirez, who lost both her parents, continues to deal with the crash.
I think this was a classic textbook case of everything you should not do when flying a plane. Hopefully it's a wake-up call to pilots that no matter how many times you've flown to a city, you just have to be alert and aware, because every little move that you make, you have the lives of people in your hands.
In heavy wind and blinding rain, the crew of a passenger jet struggles to land.
Put it down! Put it down!
A terrifying crash landing leads to a desperate fight to survive.
The only thing that matters to me now is to get my daughter Emily and protect her as we blow up.
But we just knew that there were so many passengers in that plane that had not gotten out.
Open the door! Open the door!
Mayday, Mayday.
This is a true story based on air traffic control recordings, official reports, and interviews with those involved. Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2005. Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. 297 passengers are boarding Air France Flight 358, bound for Toronto.
Far aisle, left-hand side. Merci.
Philippe Lacaille is traveling with his wife and 2 of his 4 children.
Would you like the windows?
They're stuck at the back of the enormous jet, and they're not sitting together.
It just happened that we were separated from Emily. They had 3 seats together, so we were in the middle section, and Emily was actually sitting a couple of seats ahead of us on the right side, so close to the right wing of the plane.
For Eddie Ho, Flight 358 is the continuation of a trip that began in Johannesburg.
I'm an international student in Canada at Queen's University, and every summer I go back to South Africa.
Ho isn't traveling light.
I was carrying everything that I had, my books to my clothing to tuition money for the year, computer laptops.
This is also another leg in a long journey for Joanne Cordery Bundock, who's returning from a trip to Thailand.
I rerouted myself in the last 2 days before the flight from Bangkok through Paris to come directly to Toronto.
As the passengers continue to board, the flight crew gets settled into the Airbus A340. The captain is 57-year-old Alain Rosaille. He's been with Air France for more than 20 years. His co-pilot is 43-year-old Frédéric No.
Do you want to start, or should I?
Why don't you fly first, and then I'll take over for landing in Toronto. I check the weather.
On this flight, the 2 men decide that Captain Rosaille will handle the takeoff in Paris, and co-pilot No will land in Toronto.
Destination, Toronto Pearson.
Check. Crews often split the duties so that co-pilots can get more experience. Rosaille and No are joined by one other person in the cockpit.
I think you've been expecting me. I'm Miles Trouchesset.
Welcome. Miles Trouchesset is the son of an Air France employee. He's allowed to ride in the cockpit's jump seat for free.
I just want to let you know I've done this before. I promise I'll be quiet.
This Air France plane is one of the safest in the world. Since the A340s first went into service in 1993, they've had an excellent safety record.
Air France 358. Air France 358, runway 27 left. Cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff. Air France 358. Have a good afternoon, gentlemen.
Just a few minutes before 2 in the afternoon, Flight 358 powers into the sky above Paris. Toronto may be several thousand kilometers away, but the friends and family of those on board Flight 358 are already making plans to meet the plane when it arrives.
Hello? Audrey, I won't forget. I'll make sure to pick up Mom and Dad. No, I won't forget the 2 brats either. I'll get them all.
Well, we usually make arrangements before we go to France to be picked up. It's easier because we have lots of luggage, you know, and we bring back stuff from France. So it just happened that Julian, our son, was going to spend the summer in Toronto and was available to pick us up.
Sis, I'll give you a call as soon as I get in. Don't worry. I got it covered. Okay? All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Center, we have a humidex advisory and extreme heat alert for Toronto, as well as a thunderstorm warning in effect for Toronto.
A regular flight from Paris to Toronto takes about 8 hours. As Air France 358 closes in on Canada, there's little to separate this trip from any other.
I found that their service was amazing. The food was great. They had very good flight attendants.
There were a lot of exchange students from France, you know, like teenagers, you know, coming to Canada for their first time, usually their first flight, and they were very rowdy.
There was a beautiful day on the flight over, and the sun was shining, and it was just blue skies and white clouds, and just a lovely day.
The autopilot does most of the work for Captain Alain Rosaille and his co-pilot Frédéric No. Just as the two men had planned, No is now in control of the plane.
We have a new weather report.
The two men get regular updates on the weather conditions in Toronto.
Overcast and rainy with a chance of thunderstorms. Temperature in the low 20s.
At Toronto's International Airport, the thunderstorms are already rolling through. Rain, wind, and lightning are hammering the runways. The lightning has already forced airport authorities to declare a red alert. It means that the chance of being struck by lightning is so great that ground crews are not allowed to work on the planes. Just as Flight 358 closes in on Toronto, it's put into a holding pattern. The weather isn't getting any better.
358, there's going to be a little delay.
Air France 358, so roger on delay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I'm sorry to inform you that there'll be a short delay. There's some weather conditions above Toronto, and we're just going to give it a couple of minutes to clear up.
I was very surprised when I heard the captain's announcement that we were going to be delayed in landing for about 25 or 30 minutes because of thunderstorms over Toronto.
While they're not in the storm yet, the crew enters their holding pattern northeast of Toronto. Their alternate airport is almost 300 kilometers away in Ottawa. At the moment, the plane has a little over 7,500 kilograms of fuel in its tanks, more than enough to get them there.
Typically, a pilot will think about the economic impact of diverting to an alternate airport. While that is not a primary decision maker, it is an alternate decision maker as far as if they have to divert, how are the folks going to be transported from that alternate airport back to the destination airport that the airplane was originally going to.
Flying almost 300 passengers to Ottawa would be a logistical nightmare. But the crew can't circle for too long with the fuel they have. If the delay continues, they'll have no choice but to divert.
Air France, Toronto arrival. Your hold is now canceled. You are cleared for a Wasi 2 arrival. Maintain 5,000 feet.
Air France 358, roger on cancellation of hold. Cleared for Wasi 2 arrival and maintain...
Today, the delay isn't long at all. Although the storm continues to thunder down near the airport, the crew is put into their landing sequence.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Just wanted to let you know we're beginning our descent into Toronto at this time. We should be on the ground at about 4 p.m. local time.
Usually when they say 45 minutes, you know, it's to be nice. You know, usually it's like an hour and a half. This time it was like 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, they said, okay, well, now we're going to go down, prepare, you know, for the landing.
With co-pilot Frédéric No at the controls, the plane begins its descent into the storm.
Air France 358, reducing speed to 190.
No isn't prepared for what he's about to face. The storm has a savage surprise in store for everyone on board Flight 358. A brutal summer storm is battering Toronto. Winds and lightning are hammering the airport, making it tense for incoming planes. After a short hold, Air France Flight 358, with 297 passengers aboard, begins descending into the storm.
Flaps 2,
Flaps 2. F-speed.
Gear down.
Landing gear down. Spoilers armed. 4 green.
Landing gear down. Spoilers armed. 4 green.
It'll be fine. Don't worry. It immediately turned into very dark skies and dark clouds and a little bit bumpy and choppy, and the weather outside was definitely within a thunderstorm. But really and truly, to me, it was just a typical stormy landing. Nothing out of the ordinary.
In the main cabin, though, not everyone is so sure.
The plane was getting very bumpy. There was a lot of turbulence. We were surrounded basically by heavy weather, and this was completely not expected. I didn't expect that.
Air France 358, slow your final approach speed.
Air France 358.
Co-pilot Frédéric No has the plane in position. He's moments from landing.
Air France 358, roger.
Flaps to full.
Flaps full.
It was going darker and darker. We were like in the middle of hundreds and hundreds of lightnings. Like every second we had lightnings all around us. So people were getting nervous, quite nervous. I was getting nervous.
Ahead of the Air France Airbus, 2 other planes have just touched down on the same runway that Flight 358 is heading for.
Air France 358, this is Toronto Tower.
Toronto Tower, Air France 358, go ahead.
You are cleared to land runway 24 left. Be advised, the preceding aircraft reports braking action is poor, and they estimate the surface winds near the runway as 290 degrees at 15 to 20 knots.
Braking poor, 15 knots, gust to 20. Air France 358, thank you.
The crew is being sent to runway 24 left, which will allow them to land into the wind. It also happens to be the closest runway to the city's biggest freeway, which is gearing up to handle the evening rush hour traffic. Facing unpredictable winds and a wet runway, the crew prepare for the landing.
Select auto brakes to medium.
Medium is set.
The final approach for landing was hellish. Lightnings were all over. Turbulences were enormous. You could feel the pilot fight with the plane to keep the plane in line with the runway to land, and they had a heck of a time to keep it lined up. I know my son next to me was getting very nervous, and I was nervous to see my daughter actually far from us.
I cinched up my seatbelt tighter than it was, expecting a very hard landing, and the pilot was going to stick it on the runway, or we were maybe going to do a touch and go, and he was going to give it power and go around, because I knew that it was not going to be just a normal landing.
Landing, autopilot, auto thrust off.
At 2 minutes after 4 o'clock, Air France Flight 358 roars over the beginning of the runway.
Put it down!
This landing was more intense and harder than any time I've ever landed in another aircraft.
very difficult landing. And everyone started clapping, and even the lady who's sitting next to me, I remember very clearly, she said, wow, that was an amazing landing. And as soon as she finished that sentence, then all hell broke loose.
We started the plane started violently going up and down, and it felt like we were going 100 miles an hour down a road filled with potholes that were about 3 feet deep.
Immediately you could see this orange aura, and for me it's a picture I will never forget. My daughter was sitting ahead of us on the right side of the plane, and at that time she turned her head towards us, with very wide eyes, looking at us, and her face was surrounded by this enormous orange aura of fire.
Then, moments after touching down, still traveling at 146 kilometers per hour, Flight 358 runs out of room.
At that point that I believed that we were all going to die. It was obvious that no one can survive this kind of thing.
I thought this was it.
The next thing that I can remember is that an announcement came. Ladies and gentlemen, everything's okay. We've stopped now. Well, no kidding. Of course we've stopped now. But I could tell that everything was not okay because I could immediately smell jet fuel.
As the smell of jet fuel fills the cabin, panic quickly spreads.
Everybody was expecting the plane to blow up. It was obvious.
Smoke and flames are spreading quickly. Now it's a desperate struggle to escape.
You hear shouting from the back that there was a fire, and then people started really getting panicked.
If they don't get out, they have just seconds to live.
We know that about 2 minutes into a fire, in many cases, the environment becomes untenable. So 90 seconds is a good rule that we use in trying to get people out to make sure that they have as much time and safety as possible.
297 passengers are desperate to leave the plane.
The only thing that matters to me now is to get my daughter Emily, who's sitting like 2 seats ahead of me, get her onto me, and protect her as we blow up.
Am I going to try to get my luggage, my laptop? And then I thought to myself, what if I would die trying to get my laptop? I just said, okay, I've got to get out. I've got to get out.
Flight 358 has 8 possible emergency exits, but seconds after the crash, most of them aren't opened.
People were crawling over the seats, they were pushing each other, they were just basically all for yourself.
Hey, stay calm, please. Please stay calm. Be all right. Open the door! Open the door!
And I could see the air attendant there struggling with the fact that should I or should I not open this door, because the fire was raging just in front of it.
If the fuel tanks rupture and we have a lot of fuel that gets out either onto the ground, well then there's enough heat and fire there that would cause the airplane skin to melt in a couple minutes.
At the front of the plane, thick smoke is pouring in through one of the open doors. Joanne Cordery-Bundock races to the other side of the plane.
The gentleman in front of me had his bag with him, and he was kind of fumbling around with that and trying to take that down the slide. He was a rather large man, and the slide did not deploy the entire way, so I kind of bailed off the side above him and hit the ground.
Eddie Ho has found an exit too, but there's no slide.
And people pushing me forward, I couldn't even control myself. And I was like, you know, I don't want to jump as well because, you know, it was 5 meters down at least.
Is he okay? Is he okay?
In the cockpit, Captain Rosai has been badly injured when his seat was ripped off the floor by the force of the crash. As precious seconds tick by, the flight attendant near the Lacais manages to open the exit door. Even though passengers are confronted with the flames and smoke of the burning engine, they jump out of the plane.
So push them down, my wife went down, I went down. We just ran up as fast as we could through torn metal and thorns and like through whatever was left of the ground where the plane was.
Once the fire gets inside the airplane, all of the furnishings are much like the furnishings in your house, and there are foams and materials that, when they catch on fire, produce toxic gases, and that's really the most important lethal aspect of the fire.
Basically, you just had to jump. So what I did was, you know, I prayed quickly and I closed my eyes and jumped.
Emergency workers are able to reach the burning jet just 52 seconds after it crashes. But with the threat of an explosion, it's dangerous to get too close.
It was very difficult to see anything due to the rain that was coming down. There was a lot of smoke engulfing the plane, some fire that was still ongoing, as well as you could see that some of the parts of the plane had broken off, some of the wheels that were at the side of the roadway, as well as portions of the plane's wings that had broken off.
Philippe Lacaille and his family struggle up the hill the plane has just plowed down.
You know, and at that point, the plane blew up. Once, twice, 3 times. So you could feel and hear this enormous explosion actually taking place. On the first one, I looked at the first one because I just couldn't believe my eyes. You know, I could see, I think, pieces of luggage, things flying up in the air. You know. And of course, at that time, I figured, oh my God, you know, that could have been us, you know.
We had a perfect view of the airplane and see this black smoke coming out the side of the airplane, and the yellow and the orange and the red flames shooting out. We were fine, but we just knew that there were so many passengers in that plane that had not gotten out.
August the 2nd, 2005. Air France Flight 358 has crashed off its runway in Toronto. Flames are tearing at the fuselage. Smoke is pouring from the ruined jet. Dazed passengers are stumbling from the plane.
Passengers that were coming up, again, were very rain-soaked and muddy from coming up the hill. There were several individuals that once they got up there were crying and a bit emotional, as well as looking around for other passengers or family or friends that may have been with them at the time.
About 35 minutes ago, a plane ran off the runway at Toronto's Pearson Airport.
Footage of the crash quickly appears on local TV stations. Philippe Lacaille's daughter Audrey is one of the many people shocked by the pictures.
She turned on her TV, and here we go. There was the Air France crash right here, live in front of her. you know, burning, exploding right in front of our eyes.
250 people on board. We have not had any reason to make a statement yet as to whether anybody has survived or escaped.
Philippe Lacaille's son Julien is waiting for his father at the airport. He has no idea what's just happened to the Air France flight.
What? What do you mean, where am I? I'm at the airport waiting for mom and dad. Like, you... What?
So Julian didn't know anything, and he was there at the airport. And she says, well, you know what? I think you're going to have to wait a long time because the airplane just crashed.
One of the busiest highways in North America borders the airport. Just before rush hour, it's packed with thousands of vehicles. Drivers slow down, captivated by the terrifying sight of the burning plane. Some of the passengers who've escaped the plane stumble, dazed and shaken, right onto the edge of the highway. Passing motorists stop to take them to the airport.
At this point, there was only about 25 or 30 people with me in the airport. And here, you're also beginning to think, is this all there is?
As people are brought in, airport employees struggle to account for all the passengers and crew.
They were totally disorganized. There's no announcements being made. There's nothing of any kind of organization, and you're in this little crowded area with all the irate passengers waiting to be processed. Some people even said, you know, the first disaster was the plane crash, and the second disaster is exactly how it was handled afterwards.
Relatives wait desperately for any news. Julien Lacaille is just one of many who fears the worst.
For at least an hour and a half, he thought we were dead. That's a shame because, of course, we panicked, we were scared to death, but the families that were waiting for the passengers, they were even more scared because it lasted much longer. They really believed deep down that their family members were dead.
Finally, hours after the crash, passengers who have waiting family members are reunited.
Julian! Julian! What's up? Oh, you okay? Oh my God! You're okay. How did you...
We finally met up with Julian. It was 11 o'clock at night. It was, you know, God, we're so lucky. We're so lucky. We're alive, you know. It's hard to explain, but it's like you're giving a second chance, you know. Here's my son, you know. Maybe I didn't tell him I loved him, you know, when I left for France. Now it's time to say it right away. It was a very nice moment. A very, very deep moment.
It's just one of dozens of reunions. It takes hours to confirm, but by early evening, Air France and the local airport authorities can make the incredible announcement. Remarkably, every single passenger and all the members of the crew of Flight 358 have managed to escape the burning wreckage of their plane. The next day, smoke and charred wreckage are all that remain of Air France Flight 358. The Airbus A340 is a sophisticated, highly engineered plane with a glowing safety record. What had gone so terribly wrong? Canada's Transportation Safety Board quickly begins investigating the accident.
Landing, autopilot, auto thrust off.
Rain and lightning had been battling the airport all afternoon. Was it simply bad weather that caused this crash?
Put it down.
Put it down!
Neither the pilot nor the co-pilot have spoken publicly about the crash.
We have to evacuate now!
Citing lawsuits that were filed soon after, Air France has kept all of its employees who were on the plane from speaking to the media.
Is he okay? I don't know. Is he okay? I don't know.
But former Air France trainer Hervé Labarthe has spoken to Captain Rosaille.
We spoke, let me think, for half an hour. He told me that this is the crucial point, that he has control. More specifically, informed control that he had reached the point where he would have to consider diverting. What he told me is that control informed him that they would soon open the runway. There was, of course, a lot of lightning, rain, and turbulence can have a devastating effect. Instruments become more difficult to read, the aircraft is harder to handle.
Investigators discover that as the crew struggled for control in the cockpit, on the ground, delicate instruments used to measure the wind at the runway were destroyed by lightning. With the ground equipment destroyed, they were relying on their onboard systems for information about wind conditions.
The onboard equipment only gives them the actual wind direction and speed on the nose of the aircraft at that exact time. It does not predict ahead of the aircraft. So the pilots really have no way of knowing what lies ahead of them.
But two planes had touched down just minutes before the Air France flight on the same runway. The crews of those planes did their best to inform air traffic control of the tricky conditions.
Air France 358, this is Toronto Tower.
Toronto Tower, Air France 358, go ahead.
You are cleared to land runway 24 left. Be advised, preceding aircraft reports braking action is poor, and they estimate the surface winds near the runway as 290 degrees at 15 to 20 knots.
Braking poor, 15 knots.
20-knot winds are strong, but are well within the allowable range for landing an A340. But when investigators study radar images of the airport, they discover quite a different story. As Flight 358 landed, a sharp line of rain moved across the runway from north to south. It was driven by a sudden gust of wind of up to 33 knots. The crew of the Air France jet had to deal with conditions that were much worse than they were expecting.
Landing, autopilot, auto thrust off.
33 knots is the demonstrated maximum crosswind for an A340, and that would be on a dry runway. So when you say 33 knots at 90 degrees, you're encroaching on the limits of the aircraft.
Closely studying the airport, investigators uncover another piece of the puzzle. Maintenance issues and the storm itself were forcing air traffic controllers to use runway 24 left for landings. It's the shortest runway at the airport, almost 650 meters shorter than some of the others. Blinded by rain, driven by unexpected winds, and landing on the shortest runway at the airport, Flight 358 was in a dangerous position.
Over the previous 4 hours, they had been made aware of the terrible storms and red alerts. And that was for me my biggest concern. Were they perhaps overtired? Were they lax, victims of routine? In any case, it's obvious that they hadn't gauged the extent of the danger.
It's evident that the flight crew didn't perceive the information that they were getting from these various sources as being threatening. Therefore, they attempted to make a landing.
But even in bad conditions, even on a short runway, the crew had 3,000 meters in which to land their plane. It should have been enough. To find out why it wasn't, investigators turned to the past. In 1999, an eerily similar accident took place in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Damn, we're off course. I can't see it. Way off.
Struggling with unpredictable weather, the crew of an American Airlines jet landed their plane, only to have it skid off the runway. 11 people were killed. Greg Feith helped investigate that crash.
One of the first things that I thought about was déjà vu. Having the first bits of information about the Air France accident, it reminded me so much of the American Airlines accident.
In the Little Rock crash, Fife discovered that the crew had made a critical mistake, which contributed significantly to the accident.
They hadn't followed all of the checklist procedures, and they didn't have the ground spoilers armed, which basically degrades the efficiency of lift on the wing and settles the airplane heavily on the main wheels so that braking action is more effective.
Spoilers are only one of several ways pilots of passenger jets stop their massive planes. Reverse thrusters are used to redirect the engine power forward as the plane lands, and sophisticated brakes help slow the jets down. To rule out any mechanical fault, all three systems are examined by investigators of the Air France crash. One of the brakes on Flight 358 was destroyed in the fire, but the 7 other sets of brakes are all tested after the accident. All of them are working properly.
Flaps 2, flaps 2, F-speed. Gear down.
Investigators in Toronto also discover that, unlike in the Little Rock crash, this time the spoilers had deployed properly.
Landing gear down, spoilers armed, 4 green.
And when the engines are examined, the reverse thrusters are deployed. No obvious mechanical fault can be found. As the investigation continues, a French newspaper prints a bombshell. Le Figaro publishes a story claiming that the thrust reversers, which use the jet's engines to slow it down, were not turned on until the plane had been on the runway for more than 12 seconds.
As
for Captain Rosay, he confirmed the newspaper report. His explanation was that his co-pilot had tense-stopped and was having difficulty controlling the lateral movement of the plane. No doubt because of the strong crosswinds and because the runway was so slippery, his hand was clamped tightly on the throttle release lever, which prevented the captain from reaching it himself. So the reverse thrusters could not be activated.
Shortly after the newspaper story appears, investigators publish their initial report. It confirms Le Figaro's version of events. Canada's Transportation Safety Board reveals that while the thrusters were found in the on position at the crash site, they had not been deployed as soon as the plane landed. In fact, it took 17 seconds before they reached maximum power.
The delay was a question raised in the report, and I wouldn't want to hazard a guess as to why there was such a delay or what was the cause of it. I just know that pilots, as a rule, want to get those reversers in as quickly as possible for maximum stopping.
The investigators reveal other confusing facts about the last few seconds of Flight 358. When it came over the start of the runway, it was twice as high as it should have been. And when it did land, it was nearly halfway down the runway.
Put it down! Put it down!
In these stormy conditions, the crew didn't have enough time to stop.
Once they found that the airplane had floated down the runway, the pilot has to make the decision whether we stay on the ground and try to salvage this bad situation, or we abort the landing, power up, pull up, and go around, get our stuff together, and then come back for a second landing.
Air France 358.
But decisions in a cockpit are joint decisions. The captain and the first officer work together.
If the captain sees that landing will be difficult, he must open throttle and go through abort landing procedures. That's his duty. And of course, the co-pilot is also allowed to be the first to act. But the captain's duty is to avoid at all costs a lengthy touchdown. That is clear.
By the time the plane touched down, it had only 1,500 meters to stop. And when it did land, critical seconds were lost when the reverse thrusters weren't engaged.
Would it have made a difference to immediately activate the reverse thrusters? Of course it would. Since reverse function reaches its peak efficiency at high speed, that is the exact moment of touchdown, that's what reverse is there for. It's all a matter of aerodynamic braking. The other problem is that the wheels touched ground in the middle of the runway. And reverse or no reverse, at that point it was already too late, as was pointed out by the head of the inquiry. That being said, if the reverse thrusters had been activated immediately, the plane would have come to a stop more quickly.
Il serait sorti moins et moins vite.
In heavy storms, the margin for error is razor thin. On this rain-filled afternoon, sudden wind, a long landing and a short runway sealed the fate of everyone on board Flight 358. What concerns some in the aviation industry isn't this particular flight, but the reality that overruns are far too common. They happen all around the world, and safety procedures that could stop them are not in place. In August 2005, Air France Flight 358 crashed off the end of a runway in Toronto. It was a horrifying incident, yet amazingly everyone survived. But Flight 358 wasn't the only jet to go off the end of a runway in 2005. Worldwide, there were 37 other runway overruns. And the causes of all these accidents were remarkably similar.
There are a number of causal factors that occur again and again in runway overrun accidents. The weather conditions, the state of the runway surface. It can be wet, it can be icy, it can have snow on it. Speed in excess of a normal approach speed for the aircraft that does not then bleed off as the aircraft attempts to land. And these factors occur again and again in runway overrun accidents.
Unlike the crash at Toronto, some overruns are deadly. This Southwest Airlines flight in Chicago slid off its runway several months after the Air France crash. A small child was killed in a car that was driving on the nearby highway.
Many older airports, in particular in big cities which have expanded out towards the airport in the course of their growth, are constrained in the area that they can use for overruns.
You have to consider what happens when the runway is contaminated. Snow, ice, standing water. That will degrade the stopping performance of the airplane. Add to that a tailwind component, which was existent at the time that Air France landed. That, in combination with the contaminated runway, can jeopardize the landing performance and in fact increase it probably by 50%.
The International Civil Aviation Organization recommends that every airport have a 300-meter safety zone at the end of runways that handle international flights. Canadian standards are a little less strict. They call for a 60-meter overrun area and recommend another 90 meters on top of that. Runway 24 left meets the low end of those recommendations.
There was another runway overrun accident to the runway in Toronto, which was very closely aligned with the runway that is there at the moment, in 1978, when a DC-9, an Air Canada DC-9, rejected a takeoff and ran into the ravine.
Well, the plane started to brake, and then there was just nothing, and then we dropped over the edge. There's about a 50-foot drop, I guess, at the end of the runway. We just went over the top, and then there was a heck of a bang, and people and seats all over the place.
2 people died in the 1978 accident. A coroner's inquest after the crash recommended that the gully be filled in, but it never was.
It's a steep ravine. It has about a 50-foot drop-off, and when you take a large, complicated and fragile piece of machinery like a commercial aircraft and you drop it 50 feet, then it tends to break.
There is a possible solution to runway overruns, but it's not being used in Toronto or many other international airports. It's called EMAS, or Engineered Material Arresting Systems.
It's a form of artificial stone or artificial gravel, which has a certain depth. And anybody who's ridden a bicycle into a gravel pit knows that a bicycle stops very quickly and it can be almost impossible to pedal it out. And the same thing happens to airplanes.
Several airports in the US use the system, but most international airports do not.
It's very much more effective than friction braking, and it's certainly incomparably more effective than thrust reverse and spoilers. And any one of these systems, when properly engineered, can stop a large airplane, no matter what the runway surface conditions, in a very short distance.
We have to evacuate now!
But one vital air safety guideline was met when Flight 358 crashed. In spite of the smoke and the spreading fire, the crew of the crippled plane made sure that all the passengers escaped in just 90 seconds.
It's just a miracle that all of those people were able to evacuate the airplane as quickly as they did before the airplane was consumed.
The Air France flight was particularly noteworthy in that everybody got out, essentially unscathed. I know there were some injuries, but everyone got out. So I think it was noteworthy, and it was very good evacuation from that perspective.
Captain Alain Rosaille may never fly for Air France again. His injuries required extensive physical therapy after the crash. At the time, he was less than 3 years from retirement.
Every morning, Captain Rosaille relives the experience, coming face to face with the flames, the noise, the crash. And it made him sad to end his career on that note, having destroyed his plane. That's the worst possible fate for a pilot, the worst outcome.
The co-pilot, Frédéric No, is suspended for 3 months after the accident. By early the next year, he's back on duty with Air France. There are reports that after he helped Captain Rosaille out of the cockpit, he was the last person off the plane. The passengers deal with the crash in their own ways.
Well, I went through nightmares almost every single night, flashbacks during the day. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I questioned myself, why am I here? It's frightening, to be in such a state. And it has taught me to be strong.
We really need to take seriously those safety commands and evacuation information, because you never know. It was a perfect flight. There's not any indications that anything can go wrong, and it's right at the very last second that everything happens. So thank goodness I'm here to be able to talk about it now.
Open the door! Open the door!
There's a lot of negative in the accident, and there's a lot of positive. The negative is, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Oh my God, it's horrible. Oh, I have these nightmares. And, yes, I'm traumatized. And my kids are traumatized. However, you have the positives. And the positives are, gee, I'm alive. I have been given a second chance. I have been given a second life. And all of us, my wife and my children and myself, we all experience the same positive effects of the crash, which is we have to give back. We have to do something for others. We have to extend our heart out, our compassion to people who need it. It's almost therapeutic for us, The more you do for others, the better you're gonna feel. So for me, I figured, if I can extend my heart out to others, maybe it's gonna help me as well.
"35,000 feet above the Sea of Japan.
Korean Air 007, unreadable.
We're experiencing rapid decompression, descent to 10,000.
The pilots have lost control of their plane.
Speed brake is coming out.
A 747 with 269 people on board plunges towards the sea.
Within hours, the story began circulating in Washington that the Soviets had been involved.
This shocking incident escalates tension between two bitter rivals. The investigation is mired in secrecy and deception. It's up to investigators to find the answer before the crash of a passenger jet leads to an all-out war.
Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband. Emergency descent. Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband. Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband. Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband.
It's just after 2 in the morning aboard KAL Flight 007.
Korean Air 007, position over Nippy, estimating NOCA 1826132.0.
After a brief layover in Anchorage, a Korean Airlines 747 is on its way to Seoul. The marathon flight originated in New York 13 hours ago. Captain Chun Byung-in has nearly 11 years' experience flying for Korean Airlines. Before that, he served 10 years in the Korean Air Force. This leg of the flight is a 6,100-kilometer journey over the North Pacific. Once the plane is in the air, there is very little for the pilots to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll soon be serving breakfast before we land in Kimpo, which will be in about 3 hours.
Many of the passengers plan to take connecting flights to other destinations after landing in Seoul. Mary Jane Hendry is heading to Japan to start a new life.
My sister Mary Jane found a job and she'd gotten hired by this Kara company. She was exactly the kind of person that they needed for their company in Tokyo. So she was leaving to embark on this new stage of her career.
Just 15 minutes behind them is the plane's sister flight, KAL 015.
Korean Air 007.
Go ahead, Korean Air 015.
What are you doing?
The flight crews chat to help pass the time.
Go see the leaves.
We're experiencing an unexpectedly strong tailwind.
How much of a tailwind?
35 knots from 040.
In an effort to conserve fuel, the crew decides to take the plane to a higher altitude.
Tokyo Center, Korean Air 007.
Korean Air 007 Tokyo.
Korean Air 007 requests climb 350.
Roger, stand by. Korean Air 007, climb and maintain flight level 350.
Roger, Korean Air 007, climb and maintain flight level 350.
Then, without warning, the plane is out of control.
What happened?
Start throttles.
Landing gear.
Landing gear.
The crew extends the landing gear in an effort to stop the plane from climbing.
Altitude is going up. Altitude is going up. Altitude is going up. Speed brake is coming out. I can't descend. This isn't working. This isn't working. Engines are normal, sir. Is it rapid decompression? Tokyo Center, Korean Air 007.
Korean Air 007 Tokyo.
We are experiencing rapid decompression. Descent to 10,000.
Korean Air 007, unreadable, unreadable. Radio check on 10048.
Stand by, stand by, stand by.
Headband. Emergency descent.
Korean Air 007 Tokyo.
Korean Airlines Flight 007 and all 269 people on board have vanished.
Korean Air 015, would you attempt to contact Korean Air 007, please, and relay position?
All efforts to contact the flight have failed. Tokyo makes calls to other radar stations in Japan and Korea.
I cannot contact Korean Air 007.
A call is even made to a radar facility in the Soviet Union. Relatives nervously await news of the missing flight.
The company that Mary Jane was going to work for, they apparently had phoned and said Mary Jane's plane hadn't arrived and that something had perhaps gone wrong with the plane. But at that point, we didn't really know anything.
There was concern that it had been either forced to land or crashed, or within hours, the story began circulating in Washington that the Soviets had been involved.
As the world waits for news about the incident, US military officials make a horrible discovery. At a top-secret surveillance facility, they've been monitoring Soviet transmissions. It appears the unthinkable has happened. At the time of the flight's disappearance, US soldiers heard what they thought was a routine Soviet training mission.
При нарушении государственной границы приблизиться к цели и уничтожить.
It doesn't seem possible that the Soviets would actually shoot down a passenger plane. But American officials have little doubt. The next morning, US Secretary of State George Shultz delivers an unusually blunt statement.
The United States reacts with revulsion to this attack. Loss of life appears to be heavy. We can see no excuse whatsoever for this appalling act.
It couldn't be. It couldn't be. How could they all just perish? What do you mean? There must have been a reason.
1983 is the height of the Cold War. Russia and much of Eastern Europe are united by communist ideology. Ruled with an iron fist, the Soviet Union is locked in a bitter political struggle with the West.
Relations were bad, but no one really knew how bad, how dangerously bad they were.
Initially, Soviet officials deny responsibility for the KAL disaster.
The story came out of Moscow was that the plane appeared, we intercepted it, tried to make it stop, it didn't, it flew away. That was the first story.
But soon they reverse course and come clean. A Soviet fighter jet did in fact shoot the plane down, but they insist the attack was justified.
The Soviet view was that it was on a spy mission, perhaps carrying instruments, cameras, recorders, and so forth.
The Soviet Union claims Flight 007 entered highly restricted airspace under orders from the US government. But the US insists KAL 007 was a routine passenger flight. The dispute only heightens political tension.
In terms of an actual shooting war, the closest points that we may have come were in that year, both before and after, when both sides, particularly the Soviet side, though, was expecting an attack.
The KAL disaster would put NATO nuclear disarmament talks in jeopardy. The Soviets would ultimately walk away. The nuclear threat is growing. Under such circumstances, the need for an impartial inquiry is urgent. The UN calls on the International Civil Aviation Organization.
ICAO offers a neutral investigation, an investigation team that can deal with all parties involved in a neutral way.
Kai Frostel joins the international team of investigators that will try to uncover the truth behind the destruction of Flight 007. With two superpowers squaring off, they're under pressure to find answers and find them fast. KAL 007's flight plan should have kept it well away from Soviet airspace. Either it was shot down over international waters, or the flight had strayed off course. Figuring out which is the first priority for investigators. But they face a huge obstacle. The plane's black boxes are still missing.
The lack of flight recorders, data recorder, cockpit voice recorder, that's significant in an investigation.
The Americans joined forces with South Korea and Japan in the search for the crucial devices. But the three allied nations are not the only ones searching.
On September 1st, we got an order to go to the place where the Boeing fell and take part in the search for the Boeing 747.
It's a race to find the black boxes. The Americans know they may never get the truth if the Soviets find the boxes first. Each side accuses the other of dirty tricks.
The U.S. did formally complain that the Soviets would either sail across U.S. ships, that they would drop false pingers to deflect listening devices away from the true pinger.
The Soviets claim Flight 007 was flying in Soviet airspace over Sakhalin Island when they shot it down. If that's true, the aircraft was well outside its designated aerial corridor, a route known as R20.
Across the North Pacific, there are various routes that are labeled, and R20 was the one closest to Soviet airspace. The Red Route 1 was a nickname for it. It was the one closest. So it was known to be, or should have been known to be, a route that you took extra precautions on.
Investigators get their first hint that if the crew was flying in restricted airspace, they didn't know it.
The coordinates they were reporting, it put them on course.
The Tokyo air traffic controller who last communicated with Flight 007 tells investigators that all seemed normal.
Korean Air 007, position over Nippy, estimating NOCA 1826132.0.
The crew reported they were flying the R20 route. But as with every other flight over the Pacific, 007 was beyond Tokyo's radar range. The controller could only rely on the pilots to verify their position. Perhaps they were mistaken about where they were. That possibility becomes more likely when investigators talk to the crew of the Korean Airlines flight that was just minutes behind Flight 007.
Tell me about the exchange with Flight 007.
The captain of the second flight recounts an odd conversation with the 007 crew.
We're experiencing an unexpectedly strong tailwind.
How much of a tailwind?
35 knots, 040.
We still have a 15-knot headwind.
Could he be getting a headwind if he was here?
It would be almost impossible for one flight to have a tailwind and the other a headwind. Something doesn't add up. But with the black box still missing, investigators have no way of knowing where KAL 007 actually was at the time of that exchange.
That made it very difficult in the way that we had no direct information that I would normally have as an accident investigator.
Frostel gets more information from an unlikely source, the US military. In a rare move, US officials share highly classified surveillance data from the night of the shootdown. A top-secret technology called passive radar can track the movements of every military and civilian plane around the globe. What it reveals about KAL 007 is stunning. The plane was way off course. For almost its entire journey across the Pacific, the flight had been drifting north. By the time it was shot down, Flight 007 was 560 kilometers, or 350 miles north of where it should have been, and had already flown in and out of Soviet territory. The Soviets were telling the truth.
And then it becomes a question of determining why was it off course that much.
To find the answer, investigators turned their attention to the navigation system on board the 747. It's called INS, the Inertial Navigation System.
The INS that was used on this airliner, like most in that time period, had an accuracy of about half a mile of drift per hour. Very accurate. It would get you where you wanted to be.
The system relies on coordinates, or waypoints, entered into the flight controller.
The way it works is that there is 9 waypoints that you put in. That's the way you program it.
59 degrees, 18.0 north.
Waypoints are essentially GPS coordinates that also have one-word names, like Bethel, Neva, or Nippy. Flight 007's INS should have been programmed to find and follow those electronic guideposts to Seoul.
18.0 north.
At 849, turn left heading 270.
Perhaps there was some last-minute change in the flight plan. Kai Frostel listens to the pre-flight conversation between the crew and the tower in Alaska.
Net at 473, turn right.
Korean Air 007, climb and maintain flight level 310.
Net at 473, turn right heading 07.
It was total routine from the beginning to the end. There was nothing exceptional with the takeoff or the taxiing to position, the preparation for the flight.
After leaving Anchorage, the 747 flew out over the Pacific just as planned. But it never made it to the first waypoint. Instead, it drifted off course for more than 5 hours. Hope of uncovering the reasons why begins to fade. A 10-week effort to recover the flight recorders has turned up nothing. The search is called off.
The actual aircraft, where it was and how many pieces it was, remained unknown.
With the investigation stalled, Frostel turns to the plane's manufacturers.
The US and Boeing offered to simulate the route that we knew Korean 007 had flown. We went over to Boeing in Seattle and Boeing carried out the simulation.
Waypoint number 2, 59 degrees, 18.
Retracing Flight 007's steps in a simulator leaves them with a few possibilities. One is that a mistake was made while entering the coordinates into the INS.
60 degrees, 47.1 north.
Normally the co-pilot would insert the waypoints and the captain would check that the correct digits have been put in.
60 degrees, 47.1 north, check.
Misprogramming the INS at the gate could have taken the plane over the Soviet Union.
Okay, let's try the flight in heading mode now.
A second, less likely possibility is that after programming the waypoint navigation system, the crew may have failed to turn it on.
After takeoff from Anchorage, the aircraft would have used a constant magnetic heading to get to the route.
It's a standard procedure to begin a flight using a magnetic compass heading for direction. Soon after takeoff, pilots must activate the navigation system so it can lock on to the first waypoint.
And if it was forgotten in that constant magnetic heading, it would continue over Soviet airspace.
The magnetic heading would have kept the plane flying in the right direction, but along a very different route than the one planned. Captain Chun was a distinguished pilot with years of experience. Forgetting to switch the autopilot to INS mode would have been an astonishing error. At this point, Frostel can only speculate why Flight 007 was off course. But what's even harder to understand is why the Soviet Union would risk starting a war by shooting a plane down.
The Soviets resorted to deadly force to punish this intruder. It's like shooting the paper boy in your front yard at night because you think he might be breaking into your house.
What could prompt such a response from the Soviets? Investigators get their answer from the US military. Though Flight 007 may not have been on a spy mission that night, another plane was, a US Air Force RC-135.
They were tracking an RC-135, which was doing very, very slow figure eights off the coast with its own listening devices, waiting for a Soviet missile test.
The spy plane was near the Soviet border in the path of the KAL jetliner. When their paths crossed, the two planes may have been indistinguishable on Soviet radar.
When 007 came in over Soviet airspace, the Soviet Union assumed it's an RC-135.
Along came this intruder, and they just fell into the patterns that they had prepared in advance for such an intruder.
Upon violation of state border, approach target and destroy.
But disturbing questions remain. Did the fighter pilot get close enough to see the target with his own eyes? Did he know it was a passenger jet? Requests to speak to fighter pilot Gennady Osipovich are refused. And for the time being at least, those questions are left unanswered. In December 1983, less than 4 months after the disaster, ICAO releases the findings of the investigation. Though lacking hard evidence, the report concludes Flight 007 strayed into Soviet airspace by accident due to pilot error in operating the navigation system.
I would almost call it the best guess based on all the work and the factual information we had in 1983.
For them to summarize that the plane was there by accident, as far as I'm concerned, that's not the answers we wanted to hear, and we believed that there was further investigation to do.
The key to this mystery remains locked inside the plane's black boxes, which are assumed lost forever beneath the sea. In the months following the KAL disaster, unidentifiable human remains wash ashore in northern Japan. Small pieces of wreckage are also found. Investigators have no doubt that the plane was completely destroyed.
We don't know where their bodies lie. There was clothing that washed up on the shore, her ID washed up on the shore of Japan. Of course, getting that ID back was, at least we had something.
Like the victims' families, investigators have no clear idea where Flight 007 went down. But there are some people who do. Top Soviet officials are hiding the fact that 1 month after the incident, not only did they find the wreckage, they also found the all-important black boxes.
It was a big pile of debris. They took down this pile with their bare hands until they found the black boxes. There were 2 of them.
But the Soviets keep the boxes to themselves. The information is kept locked away. Until nearly 10 years later, after the turn of the decade brings a jubilant end to the Cold War, Glasnost ushers in a new spirit of openness in Russia. Eager to break with the past, the new administration in Moscow decides to go public.
The actual unveiling of the data recorders and black boxes was a total surprise. And suddenly this new material promised some real answers.
So I knew they're gonna tell me something. I wanted to have the facts from the tapes and then see how does those facts compare to what we wrote in 1983.
In 1992, during official ceremonies in Seoul, Russian leader Boris Yeltsin hands over the long-awaited flight recorders.
I was approached by KGB general, and he told me that you probably don't know me, but I have had the recorders for 10 years. I had them in the safe in my office. I knew it was a big international secret. It bothered me tremendously. Every day when I came to the office and I looked at my safe, and I knew the recorders were there. He told me, you may not understand that this is the happiest day in my life.
Kai Frostel is asked to lead the new team of investigators based in Paris. And as a clear indication that the times have changed, Vladimir Kaufman, a Russian avionics expert, joins the team.
Он, так сказать, ничем особо не выделялся.
At the time, I was working at the Civil Institute of Aviation and was an air crash investigator. This was an international investigation of a very high level.
Очень высокого уровня.
Their first task is to make sure the black boxes are authentic.
There was a high suspicion in a lot of quarters that the Russians or the Soviets had tampered with the tapes or had made bogus tapes. And so we had to 110% validate the authenticity of the tape. They had seals on them. They had, I remember, wax seals on them. The photographs were taken, the seals were cut.
Investigators confirm that the CVR handed over by the Russians is the same box that was installed on Flight 007.
They opened them and looked at them and validated the serial numbers, validated the model numbers.
Now that they know they have the right boxes, investigators need to make sure they have not been tampered with. Suspicion soon arises.
During the cleaning process, they noted that there had been some breaks in the tape and had been spliced by the Russians.
It is not uncommon for a tape to break during the impact of a crash. But distrust of the former Soviet Union runs deep.
First, they examined these areas of the splices where it had broken, and they did that on this high magnification photograph. One of the techniques that the French had that I hadn't seen before, that wasn't used in the United States, was a photo analysis machine. They could do this with this optical high magnification. They could actually see the magnetic waves.
The test confirms that no data was added or removed from the cockpit voice recorder when it was spliced together.
565, what was the altimeter again?
Finally, investigators can listen to the tape, confident that every word is authentic.
What? It's already time for breakfast.
What do you know?
Let's eat later.
But all they hear is idle banter from the crew.
On a step 4 right.
I heard there's a currency exchange at the airport.
What kind of money?
Dollars to Korean money.
It's in the domestic building.
Back to 010-4 right, American 737.
There is not a word on the tape to suggest the crew was on a spy mission.
Just a totally routine conversation, and either these guys are the most cold-blooded actors and falsifiers ever, or they really were totally clueless about where they were. Sadly, I think the latter's the case.
It seems unlikely that KAL-007 was on a spy mission, but it was caught flying over Soviet territory. Investigators have long suspected that the crew either misprogrammed their navigation system or left it in the wrong mode, set on constant magnetic heading. The flight data recorder finally provides the definitive answer.
The data revealed that the aircraft was on constant magnetic heading from soon after takeoff from Anchorage to the end. There was no deviation whatsoever in the magnetic heading.
The crew of KAL-007 never activated the waypoint navigation system.
Gear up.
Landing gear up. Now passing 500.
It seems they simply forgot a basic step in their standard flight procedure.
The INS was functioning properly, had been loaded properly, and was counting along the route where it was thought it was supposed to be. But the autopilot was not following the INS commands. Instead, it was following a compass mode.
So it's only telling them where they're supposed to be.
Investigators learned that even though the plane was following a compass heading and not the waypoints, the computer would have continued to display their intended waypoints even though the plane was nowhere near them.
Korean Air 007, position over Nippy, estimating NOCA 1826132.0.
This may explain why the crew never noticed their mistake. The crew also didn't notice a key indication that they were badly off course.
We're experiencing an unexpectedly strong tailwind.
How much of a tailwind?
35 knots from 040.
The fact that they were experiencing completely different weather patterns to a plane supposedly minutes behind them should have alerted them to the problem.
Now, there's a point where you see him teetering on the brink of realizing something is horribly wrong. He's talking to the pilot behind him, and the winds are almost 180 degrees apart, and there's a pause, and Chun is somewhere in his mind, as he's a pilot, and he has the instinct, you know, this is odd. Is it a clue to something I should look into? And he doesn't. And at that point, he might as well pull the gun out and put it to his head.
It was human error. A complacent crew in the middle of the night had their flight computer on the wrong setting, and then didn't notice they were straying off course.
Everybody makes mistakes sooner or later. Good pilots make mistakes. Not so good pilot makes mistakes. We're all making mistakes.
When investigators combined the conversation data from Flight 007 with intercepted Soviet transmissions, they get a detailed picture of what went wrong on September the 1st, 1983. The pilots believed they were on course, but 3 hours into the flight, their magnetic heading took them into Soviet airspace over Kamchatka. The Soviet military had been tracking a US reconnaissance plane.
Там американский самолет-разведчик.
There was a real American spy plane. It was there. There were two planes that looked alike. When KAL penetrated the border, the perception was that this was the plane.
As the passengers sleep through their long journey, the Soviets scramble fighters to intercept the plane.
The identity of the plane was just not known. The clues that it was a lost civilian airliner, well, might have been there. The clues that it was a 135 didn't add up, but the Soviets involved didn't have time to think it through.
Target traveling at high speed and approaching border.
But the fighters are not fast enough. The plane leaves Soviet airspace and continues along its heading to Seoul.
They figured that they'd just been spooked, but that was all over. Unfortunately, for everyone involved, it wasn't.
The airliner is just seconds from flying over the island of Sakhalin.
So Sakhalin was prepared.
KAL Flight 007 enters Soviet airspace for the second time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll soon be serving breakfast before we land in Kimpo, which will be in about 3 hours.
Target traveling at high speed and approaching border.
Target is on your heading.
I can see it both visually and on the screen.
Major Gennady Osipovich, the lead fighter, makes visual contact with Flight 007.
Give warning burst with cannon.
But the warning shots go unnoticed.
Take up position for attack. Approach target and destroy.
Roger, locked on already. Executed launch. Target is destroyed.
The fighter pilot believed the 747 was an enemy spy plane. It takes nearly a decade after he shot down KAL 007 for that pilot to tell his side of the story. Investigators have long wondered what Major Gennady Osipovich saw and did after he was ordered to intercept an intruding aircraft in 1983. After nearly 10 years and the collapse of the communist regime, he finally tells his side of the story.
I saw the plane. It did look like a civilian plane because there was a flashing light on its tail and one on the top. But you can disguise any plane like this. You can put a flashing light on and you've got a civilian plane. So I did not have any thoughts about this.
Give warning burst with cannon.
When warning shots are fired, they usually include tracers, which are like flares and are easily seen. However, Osipovich had no tracers loaded in his cannon.
They're supposed to load tracers, just no one had shipped them any for the last 6 months, so they weren't there.
But even without the tracers, Osipovich thinks the 747 crew should have seen him.
As I caught up with him, I was flying like this, and he was flying like that. How could he not turn around and see me? I was flying with lights, everything was according to protocol. He should have seen me.
And then a horrible coincidence seals the fate of 269 people aboard the flight.
Korean Air 007 requests climb 350.
Korean Air 007, climb and maintain flight level 350.
Like a car going uphill, a climbing plane slows down. But to the fighter pilot following the 747, this is interpreted as an evasive maneuver.
He decreased his speed so that I could either pass him or fall, one of the two. So that's how I knew that he's an enemy intruder.
That convinced him that it was not a civilian plane and that he was in danger.
My only thought was to catch and stop. This is what we were trained to do. I fell a little behind him and banked down, made a snake maneuver, put some distance between us, because otherwise, the rockets would not have locked on.
He's running out of time because the airliner was approaching international waters.
Take up position for attack.
Roger, locked on already. Executed lock.
Osipovich fires 2 air-to-air missiles. They travel 2,000 kilometers an hour towards the jetliner. One of them explodes near the tail, damaging vital controls and hydraulic lines. The warhead also tears a hole in the fuselage, causing a rapid decompression in the cabin.
I saw the first explosion right under the tail, and that's it. The lights of the trespasser went out, and I went home.
Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband. Emergency descent. Put the mask over your nose and adjust the headband.
In the time that they lost pressurization to a certain point indicated that the hole would have been approximately 1.75 square feet.
The crew managed to fly the crippled plane for several minutes.
Immediately after the missile impact, the aircraft climbed to flight level 380, and then it descended about 5,000 feet per minute.
The stricken jetliner plummeted towards the Sea of Japan, with most of its passengers likely still conscious.
And that's when the recording stops. Our determination was that the airframe probably broke up at that point.
To this day, Gennady Osipovich is convinced he shot down a spy plane.
I knew they wouldn't order me to intercept if it was a civilian plane or cargo plane. Only if it was a trespasser.
We weren't blaming him. But some families did. They certainly did. They said it was his fault and he pressed the button and he shot them down and they were looking to blame somebody.
It was clear that he was living with what he had done, and what he had done in order for him to live and to sleep was to believe that it was a spy plane, there were no passengers on board, that he had not killed 269 people. And that's the way he wants to believe it, and I'm not going to blame him for wanting to believe that.
In 1993, Kai Frostel has the evidence that he sorely lacked when he issued his first report. He can prove how the Korean pilots blundered and ended up off course, and how the Soviet pilot interpreted the situation. The destruction of Flight 007 is ruled an accident. Frostel recommends that all passenger planes be equipped with a clear indicator that the autopilot is in heading mode.
The tragedy of 007 is that it didn't have to happen. It was not inevitable. It was a series of accidents, a series of misunderstandings, a series of bad decisions that had been primed ahead of time.
When my sister Mary Jane said goodbye to me at the airport, she hugged me so tightly. And I said, Mary Jane, I feel like I'm never gonna see you again.
Korean 007 has had a great effect on my life. It has been close to my heart. That has been very sad for me. My sympathy and condolences all these years have gone out to the families.